I was only 8 years old when I saw him, but I was one of the lucky ones. I survived. Michael's work isn't done in Haddonfield, and soon, very soon, he'll come home to kill again. But this time I'll be ready.
Talking about a particular cult within the Halloween franchise, and we are finally getting to it. We are talking Cult of Thorn. The curse is here. It's going to be a double of Joe Chappelle's Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, the producer's cut, and David Pryor's The Empty Man. Oh, it's going to get just amazing. And here with me to decipher the runes and to blow into the bottle is, of course, the host of The Amazing Cobwebs. It is Daniel Epler. Hey, how's it going?
This podcast does not exist. Even if it does exist, it cannot be heard. And even if it can be heard, it cannot be understood.
Oh my God. When we get into The Empty Man, because I don't think I love this movie. I don't think I still understand it.
Oh yeah, when I first started rewatching it, I typed out on my notes, "What is the Empty Man?" And then I just continued making notes under that bullet. That's my main goal for our discussion, is I want to nail down what is the Empty Man.
Because I don't think I did, because I was gonna do that. Okay, I'm gonna figure out what this thing is. Because we'll get into my journey and how I've kind of come around on the Empty Man, especially the ending, which, by the way, it's a newer movie. We'll be spoiling the crap out of The Empty Man. So go watch it and then come back and watch it. But yeah, I was just like, okay, so what is actually this thing? What is going on? But before we get into that, Daniel, how is Cobwebs going?
Oh, it's a blast. I mean, I think I've been having a ball doing it over this Halloween season. As you know, of course, we have been talking through the Psycho franchise, Chris Hurtado and I, with a variety of guests, talking about those movies. I love talking through a series with Chris and anyone else who will join us, like you. And then every other episode we're doing is just like a big topic episode. So like we did an episode programming a Halloween marathon. We did an episode ranking all the Roger Corman, Edgar Allan Poe movies.
Oh, nice.
And a bunch of stuff like that. Yeah, it's just, I've just been really in the Halloween spirit this year. And doing Cobwebs has just been super fun for me.
No, it has been. I mean, I loved the marathon episode. Just when you and Matt and Keith get together. Somehow the three nicest guys podcasting just make up the bat craziest marathon. It's like, okay, I'm with guys who understand me, so I get to say, look, I'm going to show Dark Shadows, and then I go, hang on, I don't remember hating that movie. I was the one who kind of liked it. I thought that was just me. It is. Yeah, it's a little bit flaws here and there, but no, it is actually really. Yeah, it's a fun movie. And then Matt watched it and went, I liked it. The cult of Dark Shadows is growing.
Yeah, I feel like the cult of 2000s Tim Burton is growing. And I give credit to Hayden Gilbert for that, because I think he's kind of started that trend. And then I've been kind of trying to support and push alongside. And the ball is rolling now. I'm hearing from more and more people are like, hang on, I watched this 2000s Tim Burton movie, and I've always thought everything after Sleepy Hollow was garbage. And no, it's not actually. There's actually some really good stuff in there.
No, I mean, I did enjoy Corpse Bride. I finally watched the musical, the Stephen Sondheim Cannibal. Sweeney Todd. I watched that, actually really enjoyed it. I heard. Yeah, because I heard it's not the musical. And no, I don't think it is. It's something else, and it's disgusting and gross and gothic, and it's kind of what you want around this time. Yeah, I mean, yes, he has made some unforgivable movies, Alice in Wonderland. But he has still got that Burton magic creeping in there. And so, yeah, everything after Sleepy Hollow is not garbage. And I think I'm kind of coming around on the 2000s in general. Like I was always that kind of, after the 90s, we kind of went into this weird Saw phase. And it's not that. I think when you actually look back on a time, as we'll get into when we actually talk about Halloween, the early 90s wasn't as bad as people say, and neither was the 2000s.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just a weird thing where when a horror movie is new, people just want it to be incredible because it can be anything. Like you go see a new horror movie, this could be anything. It could be the new Exorcist or it could be total trash. And if it's not the new Exorcist, people are like, it's another shitty horror movie. But when a horror movie is old and you know what to expect, you kind of discover that maybe just fun, spooky vibes is enough. Maybe it doesn't have to redefine the genre, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think hindsight is a beautiful, beautiful thing, especially when it comes to movies. And that's probably a good place to start, actually get into Halloween 6. As I said, we are going to be talking the producer's cut because I ended up watching the theatrical because I, for some reason, own the theatrical as well. And realizing that, that's because the producer's cut is the much better version. So we might as well jump into a movie that was considered one of the worst in the series and now is having its time in the sun, I think, probably. There's a lot more people. I'm probably sure Hayden Kilbert started this as well.
I actually don't know if he likes this movie.
Actually, me neither. I know
5 is his baby. He loves 5.
He does love 5, which is probably why I'm assuming it might go to 6, but he might be just like, actually, no, 5 is my baby, and I'm going to keep pushing 5. And I'm like, I'm still not there, Hayden. Maybe I will get there one day, but I'm not there yet. But we're going to be getting into The Curse of Michael Myers. Now, as I always like to imagine, the curtains are opening. Daniel, if you're going to show a trailer for The Curse of Michael Myers, what would it be?
Okay, so the main mood I want to push going into this movie is not slasher movie, not Michael Myers movie. I want to push, you are going into a cult movie. I don't mean a cult movie in the Anthony King way. I mean a cult movie in a movie about a cult.
Yes.
And I want to push that as hard as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just no better movie to show if you want to push that idea than The Wicker Man.
I am here to investigate the disappearance of a young girl. Where is Rowan Morrison?
If Rowan Morrison existed, we would know.
I suspect murder.
Sergeant, I've already told...
In the name of God, woman, what kind of mother are you? That can stand by and see your own child slaughtered.
You are the fool, Mr. Harry.
You're liars. You are despicable little liars. Dear God in heaven, even these people can't be that mad.
It's one of the most perfect cult movies and horror movies, and I adore this movie. So yeah, great choice.
So Nicolas Cage, no, I'm just kidding. 1973. 1973. We're talking Edward Woodward. We're talking Christopher Lee. We're talking Britt Eklund. This is just a great movie. I was actually just rewatching it just before we hopped on, just to kind of get in that mood. And The Wicker Man is a musical, and the songs are bops. They're really good. And it's just like, it's one of the best movies, at least, about the transition from more traditional society to the hippies. And it's about the push and pull between the hippie culture and traditional Christian culture. And especially paganism when it comes to this movie. And it's a great movie. The actors are incredible, just great acting all the way around. And I love the music. So it's a great movie for sure.
No, I love the fact that it's a musical, because this is a movie that has also gone through multiple cuts because people were like, a horror musical? No. But when you realize that it actually is a musical and they are constantly singing, much like hippies did, if I remember correctly from things I've seen. I'm not that old. But no, it is a great movie. Christopher Lee is absolutely phenomenal as Lord Somerton. I think he's even said it's one of his favorite performances because he just gets to go in so many modes and just lets it go absolutely loose. But it is very much about, the counterculture, hippie culture with the more traditional kind of upstanding, more Christian valued society, and what happens when those two butt heads. And what I always love about this movie is they do give Woodward, who plays the constable, a chance to leave. They constantly do it. And then it gets to a point, I'm like, well, you're not leaving. You've proven yourself to be exactly what we need. We've thrown every test at you. So it is kind of that Christian parable of the martyr as well, just in a more me in a twisted way, depending how you look at it. But yeah, it's an amazing movie, and that ending is still gut punch. I've been lucky enough to see this on a big screen, and just to feel the air go out of the room when that final image, or what you realize what is happening in this movie, it is glorious.
Yeah, and I feel a little differently about it now, but when I first watched it, I was like, okay, like it's, kind of interesting. It's kind of slow. Like I'm just going along with it, not quite sure why it's so iconic. And then when it got to the ending, I was like, oh my God. Like, and I knew this ending was coming, but it still hit me so hard. But now I just love the vibe of the whole movie all the way through.
Oh, it is. It's a great creepy town movie, and it's kind of a creepy town I kind of want to hang out in. Just be, it's a lot of fun. It's just a lot of singing and bagpipes and running around singing about penises with a maypole. It's amazing.
A lot of the best cult movies make you think like, okay, this is scary, but I kind of want to go there. Like this one and Midsommar kind of do that, I think. Yeah,
there's way a cult movie turns me off when I'm like, as soon as I see a group of people running towards you singing, which kind of happens in The Empty Man, I'm like, no, this is not good. Split Screen does an amazing thing where you're just looking at this really happy crowd and you're just like going, absolutely not. This is the thing what I would just turn around and walk. But Midsommar and Wicker Man, I'm like, no, this is a community that I could kind of see myself being drawn into. I also really wanted to set the mood with this. And I went with a witch movie instead. I wasn't sure which movie I was going to show it for, but I think I'm going to show it for Curse. And that is, of course, Mario Bava's Black Sunday from 1960.
Horror, anguish, and terror are powerful words, but more than words, the chill language of living images shows that the Mask of Satan is a picture of unparalleled emotion. It holds a tale of a strange, dark fascination set in a spine-chilling atmosphere of fear.
Demon. It's death! I've just seen death! She's breathing. We're in the presence of some unnatural mystery.
It's just an amazingly gorgeous gothic witch movie. You've done an episode on this yourself, I remember, with Chris. And yeah, I love this movie.
Yeah, it's really, really good. It particularly is one of those Italian horror movies, and there are a few that have this mind-blowing, incredible opening and closing, and then it's a little slow in the middle for me, but it still has like the scene where Barbara Steele first comes back from the dead, and that scene is incredible too. Definitely, if you just want to watch cool, witchy, witch-burning, cult, devil stuff, like it's one of the best movies atmospherically for that, for sure. And it's Barbara Steele's most iconic performance, and I love Barbara Steele. It's always amazing when she shows up in a movie.
Yeah, to be fair, this is a lot of Barbara Steele and a few other people wandering around a big old castle, which I actually kind of enjoy, especially because mainly it's Barbara Steele. But yeah, that opening and that closing, and Barbara Steele kind of coming up from the thing is absolutely incredible. And Barbara's such, because he started off as a cinematographer, I think. So all his movies just look absolutely gorgeous. I mean, this man knew how to use black and white as much as he knew how to use color. So it is, this, I think it kind of sets a very kind of witchy kind of vibe, which is what I have grown to love about Halloween 6. So yeah, what is going to be your second trailer?
So my second trailer is not a trailer technically. What we are going to watch is episode 2 of Over the Garden Wall, which is called Hard Times at the Huskin Bee. Have you ever seen Over the Garden Wall?
Oh, pardon me there. Say, you folks ought to don your vegetables and celebrate the harvest with us.
Oh, you're wearing costumes.
Well, sure. Pumpkins can't move on their own, can they?
No.
Good thing I didn't take this off. You guys find this place as creepy as I do, right?
So it's some kind of weird cult where they wear vegetable costumes and dance around a big thing. They seem nice enough.
Okay, you're in denial, that's fine. But I'm just saying, something feels off about this place.
No, I haven't.
So I love this. It is a animated miniseries that aired on Cartoon Network, and each episode is about 10 minutes long. This particular episode we're going to watch is 11 minutes long. And what it's about is it's cartoon, and it's about 2 little boys who are lost in the woods, and they are traveling along trying to find their way home, and they encounter various kooky characters and misadventures along the way. And episode 2, and I just rewatched it right before this. I think you can comfortably watch it alone without seeing the rest of it. And it is about these 2 little boys coming upon a town, and it is inhabited by a cult of people who wear pumpkins on their heads.
Yeah.
And they wear pumpkins on their bodies and like hay on their arms. And so it's just all these walking pumpkins around. They dance around a maypole looking thing, much like in The Wicker Man. And it's some of just the greatest Halloween-y autumn vibes that I've just ever seen on screen. And it's probably my favorite episode of this series, although every episode is really good. Just some of the best autumn vibes you can ever get is in this little cartoon short series. And it just, again, like it's autumny, it's Halloween-y, it's got a cult. It's really, really good.
This looks actually amazing. I think I heard of it. Now I've sort of seen some of the images, but I've never had a chance to watch it. So this is going on the list. Because you're right, it's got that amazing, like, just fairy tale forest imagery going on, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, and when I first watched it, I just watched it in one sitting. Like, if you watch it straight on through, it'll take you about an hour and a half. But you can just pop in and out of it as you please. Like I said, every episode only about 10 minutes long. So it's like this collection of little autumnal short stories that are really fun.
Oh, that is awesome, and absolutely perfect for Halloween. That is amazing. I really do love that idea. So I'm getting distracted by the images. So my second trailer, I am going, well, I love how the Halloween 6 kind of turns into, as much as it is a cult, it kind of turns into this haunted house, because it really leans into the fact that Michael Myers is obsessed with the house as he is as much as a cult thing. So I am going to go for Tobe Hooper's Poltergeist from 1982.
They're here.
Sweetie, remember last night? Do you remember when you woke up and you said you were here? Well, who did you mean? Who's here?
TV people.
Something's funny going on here next door.
We were wondering if maybe you had experienced any disturbances lately.
What kind of disturbances?
I don't know what hovers over this house. I've never sensed anything like it.
Yeah, and again, another kind of heavy hitter. I guess my ones are going to be my trailers are heavy hitters, but it's such a great movie, and it sort of captures this functional family, because when we get into Halloween 6, this is not a functional family at all, but it is. I love all the performances. It's got this cozy, again, Halloween feel, but then Tobe Hooper's going to give you the clown and the skeletons in the pool and whatever is taking Carol Ann. And it's a classic for a reason. But yeah, it's you didn't take the bodies out is one of my favorite lines. You just took the headstones.
So good. Yeah, this movie is very important to me because when I was a kid, I was terrified of pretty much all horror. I could handle like Universal Monsters and Vincent Price and stuff like that, but anything else was way too scary. Like I remember seeing little commercials on AMC for like Halloween 4 and 5 and being terrified by them. And my dad one time told me about the Silence of the Lambs.
Oh God.
And then I was terrified of cannibals for years. Like cannibals was my number one fear. And then he was trying to get me, because my dad was always trying to get me to watch horror movies that I was too scared to watch. And he was trying to get me to watch Poltergeist with him. And I wouldn't do it. And he told me about it. And that night I was terrified of Poltergeist and I was terrified of my closet because I was afraid like ghosts would come out of it because he told me all about the closet stuff. And the next day he's like, okay, just watch the beginning and see what you think. So I'm like, okay. And the beginning credits start and it says either written or produced by Steven Spielberg. And I was like, oh, I know Steven Spielberg. Like I love his movies. Maybe this will be okay. So I sat and watched the whole thing and I loved it. And ever since then, I have loved horror. And while the occasional movie has scared me since then, I've never been like scared by horror like I was before then. Ever since then, it's just been something that brings me joy more than it brings me fear. So Poltergeist is very important to me. Right now, there are a lot of other Tobe Hooper movies that I like better, maybe just because I've come to love him and his personal stamp is a little bit more on some of the other movies that are a little bit more from his brain rather than more of a collaboration between him and Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
But it's a perfectly made movie. You know, it's brilliantly directed by Hooper. It's a great script by Spielberg. It's a terrific collaboration between the two of them. It's really good.
It is. It kind of brings the best of both worlds. It's got that kind of, I mean, I didn't see Poltergeist till late. I mean, I was terrified of horror. So as soon as I saw Carol Ann touch the TV and go, they're here, I was like, oh, absolutely not. No way. And that was all that I needed just to know that this movie was going to terrify me. And then when I got into Tobe Hooper is when I finally watched it. And I think it does bring the best of both people in terms of Hooper and Spielberg. Spielberg kind of nudges you in thinking, oh, this is going to be Amblin. It's going to be safe. And then because there are certain moments that Hooper directs like a pro, because he always did, that's when you get, oh, I'm not safe. This is not a safe house to be in. It's not quite like Gremlins when even though they will kill you and will kill you horribly, I never felt unsafe with Gremlins, but even as an adult, I'm watching Poltergeist going, oh, this would have absolutely terrified me. I would have, that guy pulling his skin off in the mirror, I would just, nope. Now I'm like, yes, please.
I love that scene. That scene is like when a little extra, every time it gets like extra scary, you feel like that's where Hooper really got to let loose, you know, with the face peeling and how intense and crazy it gets by the third act. And when I believe Craig T. Robinson is the one who's in the pool and all the skeleton bodies are popping up, it feels a lot like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It does, because Tobe Hooper was the master of, oh, you think this is the scariest part? No, I'm just going to add this one little bit extra.
Yeah,
one little bit extra.
He builds really well.
He's really good at building, and this is what Poltergeist does. Until, I mean, you think the movie's over before even you get to the pool scene. It's like, oh no, this house has been cleansed. Everything's okay. We've got Carol Ann back, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, there is more happening.
And this movie really created the haunted house genre and what it would become later, because there are a lot of great haunted house movies before Poltergeist, but they're very different. And this is the movie that really established that haunted house movies are about families, and families like bringing in some kind of exorcist or whatever to like get the ghost out. Like William Castle's 13 Ghosts is kind of like that. But this is really the movie that creates like Insidious and The Conjuring.
Absolutely.
And that's the stuff that like really dominated horror for the 2010s. And it really all stems from Poltergeist.
It really does. And Halloween 6 does have that kind of connection, because I can't even remember where I heard it, where I read it. So I'm sorry, but they were still talking about how the haunted house movies were much more about the economics. Families just couldn't pick up and move. Once you bought a house, you were there. And
yes,
you own a house.
Say all the time, like, why don't they move? And I'm like, could you just move right now if you wanted to?
No, even if you don't own a house and renting, you just can't pick up and move. It's expensive and
really expensive.
Really expensive.
Especially in this market.
Yeah, this economy, no way. And so, yeah, it really kind of leans on that. I mean, and the Poltergeist does this as well because Craig T. Nelson is one of the developers of this new suburb where they only moved the headstones. And yeah, you get this, and that is an absolute plot point in Halloween 6, which we will get into right now.
Every legend is based on fact. Every myth is grounded in truth. For 17 years, the town of Haddonfield, Illinois, has been haunted by a night when evil roamed the streets and a madman ruled the night. Everyone knows his name. Now, everyone will know the truth.
I knew what he was, but I never knew why.
Halloween 6. The origin of Michael Myers.
Yeah, did you see the producer's cut first, or was it the theatrical for you?
Oh boy, no, I saw the theatrical. So it was a few years back when I was really starting to get into horror. Actually, I really started diving into like 80s horror around the time that I discovered This Movie. So shout out Patrick Bromley. He really guided me through the 80s, 90s horror.
Thank you, Patrick.
And absolutely. Yeah. And I was going through the Halloween series, and I came across 6, and I didn't hate 6. I saw the theatrical cut, didn't hate it, didn't think it was very good. But one of the things I really appreciated about it is Michael's mask didn't look like garbage this time.
Yes.
And I was like, hey, his mask looks good again. They figured it out. That's cool. But I remember I didn't like how blue it was. I remember the color grading was really blue and shiny and not that John Carpenter look at all.
Yeah.
And I just thought it wasn't very good. I remember the death of Jamie was really exploitative and the ending was terrible. And then for years, I always thought I had also seen the producer's cut. Like anytime people talk about producer's cut, I'm just like, yeah, I've seen that. But it wasn't until last fall I saw Halloween Kills, and I don't want to harp on it, but I didn't like it very much. And I was disappointed that I didn't get a new Halloween movie to love that year, like a lot of other people did. But I popped in my Blu-ray of Halloween Curse of Michael Myers producer's cut just to give it a rewatch. And I realized, I've never seen this. Like, this is so much different than the Halloween 6 that I remember. And I realized I'd only ever seen the theatrical. And I was so excited because in 2021, I did get a new Halloween movie to love. It wasn't Halloween Kills, but it was the producer's cut that I thought I had seen, but I had not.
This is kind of similar to my thing with Halloween 6. Before we get in, but generally, where did you start with Halloween? I keep forgetting to ask the earlier ones, people, but now I'm suddenly remembering. Did you see the original first, or was it just something always in the air because Halloween, because of when it's set, has always been associated with October and Halloween?
I saw the original first, but it wasn't a great experience. I saw it because my dad showed it to me. It was around the time when I was like 13, when he was starting to show me like all the 80s action movies, and that was a great time. But he also showed me Halloween, and neither of us liked it. Like, he didn't like it near as much as he remembered liking it when he was young, and I didn't like it very much. Our take on it was kind of boring, and it was really cliche, and like maybe it was revolutionary at its time, but by now it's just dumb and cliche. So it wasn't until I came back like years later when I was like, okay, let me watch the Halloween movies. Then I gave it a rewatch, and I appreciated it much more for what it is and its place in history. And now it's like one of the most rewatchable movies ever made for me. Like, I've seen Halloween many times. It almost feels like I love it more every time I see it. It's one of my favorite movies now, but I did have kind of a lackluster first introduction to it for sure.
Oh, this was me as well. I first watched it after I saw Scream, which kind of, I'm 16, don't think I like horror, saw Scream, went, oh my God, what the hell is this? I love it. And went back and went, oh, what is this Halloween that they were referencing? Watched it and went, oh, that was, again, a little, I thought it was kind of boring because I'm freaking 17. I didn't particularly, love it. I could see how it's revolutionary at the time, but it's not It's not Scream. And then it was like you, if this movie and Patrick Bromley got me back into 80, kind of guided me through 80s horror and a lot more of 90s horror that I'd kind of missed. And I do remember going, oh yeah, I do actually, Halloween's really good. And for Halloween 6, it wasn't until him and Mike did, because Halloween series was one of their first franchise series they do every October. And they went through it and they talked about 6, but I'm going to go finally watch these movies. And I do remember them not liking 6, I think because they just watched a whole bunch in like a week. And I think it hurt their brain. And
yeah, those franchise episodes are always rough because they binge through them so fast. And then they're like, this franchise sucks. And then years later, they're like, oh, I like most of these movies.
Yeah.
Like, what were we thinking?
What were we thinking? And Halloween 6, you could tell her going, oh God. I mean, I don't think even Patrick liked the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, except for me. He was warming on 2, but he really didn't like 1. It's always fascinating to sort of see how it goes. No, I love these movies. What was I thinking? And they were really bitching about 6. And I can see why, because it is it's very blue. When I watched it yesterday, they completely almost took out the Halloween score.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's very this kind of hard rock kind of score. It's as you said, very blue, very Dimension. We'll get more. Dimension's gonna be coming up in the series as well, by the way, but this is kind of that kind of, it feels like, even though it was made in 95, it feels like it was made in 1992, and which makes sense because Paul Rudd's just like the sentient being who doesn't age. But it is it is this kind of weird thing, and you're watching it, I'm like, really? Is that how you're going to end Donald Pleasance's run on Halloween? Just have him scream as the movie ends? What are you doing?
I remember that. I was so disappointed with the ending.
Yeah, and it was just kind of like, I don't understand. I liked the weirdness because the theatrical literally does not make sense. You do not know why things are happening, why Cult of Thorn is even a thing. You don't kind of understand it. And then I ended up buying it on DVD, and then but it was the producer's cut. I said, oh yeah, I don't know, I don't think I've seen it. And then I kind of watched it and went, hang on, this is not the movie I remember, because it is really different. And you're just watching it going, hang on a minute, oh shit, this is the producer's cut. I'm like, oh no, this is a great movie because it's much more witchy, it's much more about the cult. It's actually explaining the cult. I mean, Paul Rudd's Rune's monologue he does halfway through isn't just forgotten about because the Weinsteins think witches are dumb and they don't want to do it, or whatever. You can tell the Weinstein scissors has been applied to the theatrical, and then when you watch the producer's cut, you're like, oh, this makes much more sense, and Cult of Thorn rules.
I just heard you say the phrase, this is a great movie, and I'm so excited because I had no idea how you felt about this. This is very exciting.
Oh no, it took me a bit to warm up to it. I was like, yeah. And then, because now I just love anything witchy, I'm like, yeah, this movie leans into the witchiness, absolutely. I mean, there are people tied to altars. It's much more disturbing because when you realize Michael and poor Jamie, it is. It's just much more fun, and I had such a fun time watching it this time around. Everything about this movie made me smile more than I thought ever Halloween 6 could make me smile. And I think it's just because I'm like, yeah, they're just leaning into the insanity. They're just pulling everything from, and I will complain always that Halloween Kills tries to have its cake and eat it too. Like it wants to have it both ways. And Halloween 6 does that, but in a way that I enjoy. Like it's pulling.
Yeah.
Because there's no pretense of, oh, Michael Myers is just some random killer. No, he is this mythical, cult-controlled, is going to always murder his family. There's something to do with the Strodes and the Myerses, and they're always connected, and we're just leaning into it.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, I know a lot of people really don't like making Michael Myers explicitly supernatural.
Yes.
They don't like that he's associated with any cult, blah, 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 because it's not at all in line with John Carpenter's original vision.
No.
And it's not. I get that. But I would argue you can only have him get back up so many times before you need to give some kind of explanation. And I like horror franchises that take the story forward. I can enjoy a movie that's just another movie where the masked killer just goes around and kills more people for no reason. That can be fun, sure, but I prefer horror franchises to have like a trajectory and go somewhere and make some choices. And I think that's one of the reasons I enjoyed this movie so much last year, because I just seen Halloween Kills, and I just kind of felt like Halloween Kills makes no choices. It makes no decisions. It just has Michael be supernatural, but has nothing to say about it and has no explanation and has no story. But this movie's like, yeah, Michael's supernatural, and here's why, and here's a plot, and here's reasons, and we're making choices as filmmakers, as storytellers. And I was like, well, thank God somebody did that. I know that sounds like faint praise to say like, oh, it's a plot and they made decisions, but I don't know, like that. I appreciate that about this movie, because there are a lot of other Halloween movies that don't do that.
Yes, and you do realize we are coming off 5, which is a movie that is making no choices whatsoever, except for Michael's driving around in the car a lot and likes to go whitewater rafting.
Tina was a choice.
Tina was definitely a choice. Sorry, Hayden. Hayden, you will get to defend, and Mike, you will get to defend Halloween Kills. But it is, it's kind of revving up. It's kind of doing that typical thing that horror does all the time. It's reinventing it. This is 6 years after the last Halloween movie. Dimension have got a hold of it, and of course, Dimension's always going to dimension. So they're going to go, okay, what can we do that's new and fresh? And they're still in the thing of, okay, we've got all this backstory with all this weird timeline with Michael. Why don't we just lean into it? And I can see it not working for some people because they want Michael to be this embodiment of evil, which, yes, Donald Pleasance, I saw the eyes of a child, black eyes, the devil's eyes, which is one of the greatest speeches delivered on screen. It's right up there with Jaws, when he's talking about the shark's doll's eyes. Like, it's right up there. And for sure. But that is one version of Michael you can have. But because Myers is the shape, you could totally have him as a conduit of a cult that is controlled by runes, and have him go out and kill in this house every Halloween because it brings back some sort of demon. Actually, I'm not entirely like the Empty Man. I'm not entirely sure what the end of Cold with Thorn game plan is. They just want to keep this thing going, I think.
The end of the producer's cut is bananas, and I can't wait to talk about it.
It's like, okay, so what is okay? So I get it's got all these things I know and I'm very familiar with and I love, especially Dr. Wynn sitting at a cape in his office, just like telling Donald Pleasance's plan. I'm like, that is still not a plan, but I love the fact that you're just wearing your cape. That's amazing. That's a boss move. That's a power play if ever I've seen it. But it's this kind of cool thing. But at the end of the day, I don't really care what that plan is. I enjoy the theatrics of it all. And they're making a hard choice and they're leaning into something which I really appreciate, and I just really have fun with. It's allowing itself to be bonkers and weird, as well as giving you still the Michael Myers just killing everyone with a knife. I mean, he's pretty brutal in this movie.
I'm going to make a declaration, and I want to know what you think about it. My declaration is, this is a good sequel to Halloween 5, but it is a great spiritual sequel to Halloween 3.
I could not stop. Yes. I could not stop thinking about Halloween 3 when I was watching this. And I think it's because how much I love Halloween 3 is why I am now kind of falling in love with Halloween 6. They took all that weird ass Irish druids working with robots and magic, sacrificing children, and then they put it into this movie. Okay, if we put Michael Myers with that with 3 more days to Halloween. Since I've seen that movie, I've had that jingle stuck in my head. And it is that. And I'm like, yes, I love it.
It's the only Halloween movie that feels to me like it brings together the Michael Myers storyline and Halloween 3. Because I'll be honest, I don't think Michael Myers is near the top of the list of things that are good about this movie. Like, I don't care that much about Michael in this movie. The fact that he's in it and he's killing people is kind of just an icing on the cake. I really enjoy this as a witchy, cult, autumnal Halloween movie. because I think like the autumn Halloween vibes are some of the best in the whole series in the producer's cut. Because in the producer's cut, the color grading is very warm. It feels like Haddonfield from the original movie more than some of the other sequels do.
Yes.
But even more autumn because they're not filming in the summer. You get the orange trees, you get the leaves. And this is the only Halloween movie, I think, that has like an actual Halloween festival. And I love that whole sequence.
I love that whole sequence as well. And they really kind of lean on it in the producer's cut. I think they've just added more stuff into it because the whole point is that I didn't write down her name. The girlfriend of the brother wants to bring back Halloween back to Haddonfield because they just haven't had Halloween. Michael kind of ruined it for everyone, as he always does. So yeah, this is not necessarily, it's more about Halloween than it is about Michael. Michael is just kind of this product of the thing. But this is more about, okay, so what is Halloween? I mean, they keep hinting at that throughout the series. Like in 2, they mentioned Samhain. And 3 is all about, you know, the druids and the witchcraft and you know what actually Halloween is. It's not, you know, children stuffing their greedily candy. It's this other more spiritual thing, and this one kind of takes it back. And Michael's just a byproduct. I just like the fact that his masks look okay. As much as I really love 4, I'm like, that mask is so shit. And they they've corrected it. They've done a little bit of job with this, but that is absolutely what this movie is. It's so witchy. I mean, this is a movie that is ridiculous in some ways, and is fun because you have to get actors saying certain things very seriously. But I enjoy that because I like Dr. Loomis sort of going, oh, well, he's back, so I need to go in my thing mode. I like Dr. Wynn because he's very kind of in the background until he isn't. I love Paul Rudd. I love Kara played, I think it's by Marianne Hagen. And it's just a whole bunch of fun. I mean, it's got everything. It's got creepy old woman. It's got cults. It's got ruins. It's got a goth boy in it who decides he's going to raise a baby. I mean, it's got everything.
Yeah, you said it well, that this movie is much more about the holiday of Halloween than it is about Michael. So I could see some people saying, okay, maybe this movie would be okay if Michael isn't in it. But I don't think it's bad that Michael is in it, because I think it's a better continuation of Michael's story than a lot of other movies are, because like I've said, like you can really only have him get up so many times before you need to give some kind of explanation. Yes. Now with Freddy Krueger, he's inherently supernatural, so you don't need that. With Jason, they do actually kill Jason off, and then he skips a movie, and then he comes back to life Frankenstein style as a zombie. So
yes, he does.
It works with Jason too. At this point, they've never given any kind of explanation with Michael. At this point, canonically, he's just a guy who keeps not dying no matter how many times you shoot him. And
or
this is the movie
him.
that finally, or burn him. And this is the movie that finally takes a stance of he keeps getting back up because he's a supernatural entity created by a cult. And maybe that's not the best explanation they could have gone with, but they went with an explanation, and I think it works. And I think the movie is very entertaining.
Yeah, they took it. Yeah, I do agree that they took a stance, because if you're going to keep the franchise going, which they always are, because that's the world we live in, you're going to have to take a decision of why does this guy keep coming up? We've had Dr. Loomis from the get-go saying this man is pure evil. Okay, so what is this pure evil? If you're going to keep the movie, if you're going to keep the franchise going, and I want the franchise going because I generally like Halloween movies, even if it's a bad one, I'm still going to go see the next one.
Yeah,
you have to kind of go, why does he keep getting up? This man should have died so many times before. There has to be a reason. And like every other great monster, it's supernatural. You can't, the human being, as matter how evil they are, like you mentioned, Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal kind of turned superhero toward the end. I mean, Buffalo Bill was just a human, so he could get taken out. But when you go over to Hannibal Lecter, he kind of becomes weirdly superhuman. it's kind of that whole thing of like you take the strength of the people you eat kind of thing, and it kind of just has it running under like just making Ray Liotta eat his brain. You're just like, oh no, they can't get this guy out because he's part of a franchise and he's never going to go away. So he's going to come back in these different forms. So it has to kind of have a explanation. I think now we're a little bit we're a little bit better with the reboot. So we're okay with, so they're rebooting this character from the beginning. Okay. Back in 95, I don't think you could quite do that. So yeah, you needed to have something.
Yeah. And I prefer this way of like taking the story forward, even if the way you take it forward is crazy, or some might even say stupid. I would prefer a story to move forward rather than just kind of start over. That's one of the reasons that the Child's Play franchise is one of my favorites, is I love its commitment to always moving forward and never going back,
And never forgetting what happened.
Except for one remake.
Yes. Except for one remake, which is the reboot. But yeah, Child's Play always moves forward, but it never forgets its past. It's like Cobra Kai series. Oh yeah, we are not forgetting the weird thing that happened in part 3 or whatever. We're bringing everything back. Everything's part of the canon. And people can say it's dumb, but I kind of like it when it gets so bloated that you're just like, yeah, it's true. I am fully on board with this. I am fully on board with characters waking up tied to a friggin' altar like they're in the Satanic Panic or Rosemary's Baby. I am fully on board for this.
I will just say, in the interest of like not pretending this movie is perfect, Michael standing around a cult ceremony looks kind of silly.
Dr. Wynn delivering exposition, even though I love the image, Dr. Wynn sitting on a desk with his cape just fully themed is a very silly image. And yeah, it is Michael Myers just sort of hanging out, and even the whole the runes kind of controlling him, and he's trying to strangle Paul Rudd at the end. And Paul Rudd has figured out the rules because he got the right CD-ROM. Well, this is 95, so there may have actually been early internet, because I keep thinking this is 1992. I'm like, what? He just had a CD-ROM of just like ancient ruins? What is this evil speak? But yeah, it is very, very dopey. It is. They do not take Michael Myers that seriously. And you can tell. I mean, and other movies following this, it's back to taking Michael Myers seriously. They don't in this movie, and I'm okay with it. But yeah, which is why I think a lot of people kind of reject this movie, because it's like, you meant to take him seriously, and this movie does not. I mean, he's just hanging around a whole bunch of people in capes, just like standing there like, hey, how's it going?
But I will argue, I think the actors pretty much do take it seriously. And I've said many times before, that's how I prefer my silly horror to be. I prefer for at least the actors to like, take it seriously, give a performance. That's what Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee do. That's what Barbara Crampton and Jeffrey Combs do. They take, movies that could be silly and really give an effort to create characters and give a performance. And I do think the actors in this movie are doing that. Which is ultimately why I will always appreciate this movie more than H2O, which is more like, even though I think Jamie Lee Curtis is great in H2O, there are a lot of actors that are like, all right, this is kind of silly, like Scream kind of made fun of us, so we're going to kind of make fun of ourselves too. And I will always prefer a story to mostly take itself seriously rather than kind of poke fun at itself.
True. And saying that, we might as well get into the characters, because this has one actor who was being introduced to the world, and is now one of the he is probably actually now, I would say Paul Rudd is a movie star. What do you think of his performance? Huge. Yeah. What do you think of Paul Rudd's performance in this? Because he is actually very serious in this movie.
Okay, so I think the main reason that Paul Rudd seems kind of silly in this movie is just because he's Paul Rudd, and we know him so well now. Like, we know him so well, especially from the fact that not only is he in everything, but he's pretty much always the same in everything. So when we see him here kind of trying to be creepy and a little bit PTSD-y, it's almost like watching your friend in like a play, and you're like, all right, like he's giving an effort, but he's still my friend, and I can kind of poke fun at him or something. I think if you put all that out of your head, I don't think it's actually a bad performance. Like, I don't think it's Keanu Reeves and Dracula.
No,
I think it's better.
Yeah, a performance I love, but I realize that he is trying to hit above his weight in that movie.
Yeah, he was, as you can read, if you read him making that movie, he was exhausted making that movie. He'd made like 3 movies in a row. Like he was overworked. But Paul Rudd, I like this version of Tommy Doyle. I prefer it to Anthony Michael Hall in Halloween Kills. Because it feels more real to me that he's just like kind of grew up to be kind of a weirdo but like not a super crazy psychotic weirdo like he is in Halloween Kills, but just kind of a weirdo, a little bit creepy, kind of obsessed, kind of true crime obsessed with the serial killer that almost killed him when he was a kid, but not obsessed to a degree where he goes to a bar and like recounts the tale every year for 40 years, just like follows it and is into it and listens to a radio show about it. I think he's like, he grew up to be weird, but not unrealistically weird. And I don't know, it's kind of fun that this movie exists, that we get creepy Paul Rudd, you know, that he's not clueless in every movie. Like, here's this little weird Paul Rudd and you can go see it. I just think it's fun.
It is. And I think it does. Like, I remember the first time I saw Hot Wet American Summer, because I saw it way after that movie came out. I was like, holy shit, well, everyone's in that movie. So that's kind of like a barrage of like, oh my God, everyone is going to be famous in like 7 to 10 years. But Paul Rudd kind of sticks out in that, because I'm like, oh, this is what he's going to do for the rest of his career. This is it. This is kind of like the birth of Paul Rudd. Even though I had always, he's a guy from Clueless. But that was kind of like, oh, this is where the impetus was for him to be what he did for what he's doing now. But when you watch Halloween, it's kind of interesting to sort of see how he's developed as an actor, because I think he's very young in this. He's taking it very seriously. Like, this is a movie role. I'm going to take it seriously. I'm going to be this kind of weird off-kilter kid who is going to try and protect all the children at Halloween, because I know what that is like, because Michael Myers came after me. I kind of like Anthony Michael Hall in Halloween Kills, because the casting works the same way. I know what he was like as a teenager. I'm like, actually, yeah, I can kind of see the teenager from Breakfast Club kind of turning into this creature. Yes, it's insane, but I think the casting kind of works in a similar way of reverse. But yeah, I generally do enjoy it, because it is a weird capsule of this is weird. This is weird, Paul Rudd. This is not even the Clueless Paul Rudd he would go and be in like the next year.
Yeah, because his strength is being funny and charming.
Yes.
And that's why he became a star. And he's not being funny and charming in this movie. So he's not playing to his strengths. And I admit that. So he's not like great in the movie, but I think he's plenty good enough. And I think it's a fun little anomaly in film history. And I enjoy it. I like him in the movie.
Yeah, me too. Because you can tell right away that he's got that presence, that he's got that, oh, I can't really take my eyes off him. I'm not sure what I don't think it's I think it's a good performance. I don't think it's great.
I agree.
But I can't stop watching you. You've got that movie star kind of quality where I am just watching you. And again, that has a lot to do with the fact that I know where his career goes. But I think he had that innate, he's good at being funny and charming. And he's not that. He's that kind of weird guy that if you walk in and see your kid sitting next to him and says, oh, I know, he knows all about dinosaurs, I'm going to go, that's nice, we're going now. He's got that kind of uncomfortable feeling around him as well. It's like, why do you have a baby? You have no place in looking after a baby at all. This is not something you should be doing.
Isn't it crazy that, like, it seems like oh gosh, Jamie Lloyd. It seems like Jamie Lloyd like left that baby in there for a little while, and no one found that baby until he walked in. That was when the baby finally started crying.
Quietest bus depot I have ever seen. It's like, which is a Halloween tradition. I mean, quietest hospital, yes, into quietest bus depot. I'm just like, even in a small town, there's got to be more people in this bus depot, and that baby would have been crying for a long time. No one heard it.
Yeah, it's that's not one of the more plausible moments of the film, I will admit.
Yeah, someone would have found that baby beforehand. Though, speaking of Jamie Lloyd, I've never been a big fan of killing off a character who survived the last movie. I think it's just mean-spirited for the sake of mean-spiritedness, especially what you find out Jamie has gone through in part 6, you're like, oh no. I mean, it's gratuitous in the theatrical, but it's worth, sometimes it's like, oh, it's not actually that much better in the producer's cut, but it does flesh out a lot more. And I kind of like the fact that she does survive somewhat until halfway through the movie. Yes, she's in a coma, but because you get her flashbacks, you kind of see what she's gone through, what she went through to save her baby, and kind of what she sacrificed a little bit more instead of just like dying in like a farm wheat thing.
Yeah, let me ask, like my memory of her death in the theatrical cut is they actually graphically show her stabbed by a giant farm truck tool thing.
Yes.
And in the producer's cut, you don't actually see that.
No, you get the hint that it's happening, but no, it's very graphic. And there's this moment where you think, oh, Michael's going to reach out to her to maybe save her because he's changed his mind. Nope. He's pushing it down and he's turning it on. It is.
Oh, yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah, it's a brutal, brutal death. It kind of is a book. It's just a bookends of hatefulness of how Jamie dies and how, well, you hear Donald Pleasance die. In the end of it, and you're just like, oh, that sucks. Plus, I've gone through 6 movies with Donald Pleasance. That's how you're going to end it, because I know he died before production finished. I mean, watching this, you can tell this is not a well man. But they do give him a little bit of honor, a little bit of strength, even if the ending is fucked up.
Yeah, and my thing about Jamie dying, I don't love it, but I am okay with it because Jamie has been a tragic character ever since she was first introduced. She's always lived a sad, tragic life, especially in 5. And she doesn't seem like the character that's destined for a happy ending.
No.
She's not like Nancy Thompson in Nightmare on Elm Street, who was a happy person before she encountered the monster. Like Jamie Lloyd has always had a tragic life. So I don't think it's necessarily a betrayal to kill her off. I'm not saying I love it, but I don't really have a big problem with it. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and it does serve the plot a bit more. Like, it's not like poor Alice in Halloween in Friday the 13th part 2, when she just pops up at the beginning and then is just murdered. They do kind of use her, okay, we're going to further the plot because she went through something horrific. So when you see Kara tied to the altar, you're like, oh, this is not good at all. This is going to be very, very bad, because I think they think, oh no, Michael fucks in this movie. No, he rapes his niece. That is what is happening. I mean, JB wants no part of this. But you're right, Jamie. I love how they said Jamie Lloyd has always been a tragic character, and she has, even from 4. This is not a girl who has had the best start in life. She has not, she has the weight of her whole entire family on her shoulders, and she's like 7. It's a hard, I still find 4 kind of hard to watch for that reason, because I'm like, that's a lot of pressure to put on a child and a child actor, and it's because Danielle Harris is just a pro and I always love it when she shows up in something, and she's very good at playing that character who has the world on just resting on her shoulders, like in Halloween, the Halloween sequels with Zombie, and also in the Hatchet movies. She's very good at doing that. But yeah, I think even though it's kind of more horrific, I think it suits the movie more because it's got that amazing sheen of all this dopey stuff is happening, which I think I said on the third, which goes back to when I talked about Halloween 3. There's all this dopey shit happening up front, but when you actually look behind what's happening, it's super dark and super devilish. And that's why it's more about the Halloween season for me.
I will say the one thing that they do with Michael that I do think is a mistake is that Michael is the father of Jamie's baby. Because Michael having sex is unimaginable.
Yes.
Like, I don't believe for a second he could even get hard or he could have feelings like that. Like, I can't, that's just unthinkable. Like, I don't think that's possible with this character. And it's so unnecessary too, because if it wasn't Michael's baby, the baby's still a continuation of his bloodline if it's coming from Jamie. So Jamie could have had a boyfriend, maybe even a husband. It's so unnecessary that it's Michael's baby, and it's the dumbest thing in the movie, I think.
It is the dumbest thing in the movie. And it does make you feel a little bit icky with it. You're like, oh, we didn't quite need that. I was having fun with all the spookiness and witchery and Halloween festivals and creepy old ladies. You heard the voice. Like that night in 1963. I love her. She's like this. She's like the robot in freaking Halloween 3. Just waiting for her head to come off. But yeah, and then you get to that moment and you're like, ugh, okay. But then because of that, it also makes you realize we are just full in debauchery cult. And so when Rudd does figure out the ruins and figures out the ruins are the thing that controls Michael, it becomes much more spookier. Like there's a spooky element that I can't quite describe in that ending moment. Yeah. And
it's such a relief because like Halloween 5 is not really a spooky movie. It's like Michael just kind of driving around for a while.
I think Patrick and Mike described it as the American Graffiti of Halloween series. Which still is. I agree with that summation. It still is that. Just driving around.
Yeah. It would be kind of cool, though, if Michael drives in Halloween Ends, because he hasn't driven in a movie in a long time, and he does drive in the original.
I really like the fact that Michael is like a mechanical genius, like especially in 2, when you realize he's gone around to all the cars in the parking lot and just like taken all the spark plugs out, or he's done something. I want that Michael back. I want the Michael who's like the mechanic. He's a car guy.
It'd be kind of fun if you saw a slasher movie where they actually show him like doing all the things, like setting up the bodies and stuff. I guess Leslie Vernon is kind of that movie, isn't it? Like
it is. Yeah, it's kind of the behind the scenes of what Michael's actually doing, because Michael loves posing the bodies, and he even does this in this movie with the brother and the girlfriend. Though watching this series, I've suddenly noticed how much they do the nipple hide. I mean, you do see full boob in 6, but there's a moment with the candles just like on the nipple, and I was like going, they do this a lot in that series. There's always a scene when someone's having sex and it's just the nipple. That's it.
Yeah, it's not a sexy franchise.
No,
there's actually very little sex, and when it happens, it's very short. And you're right, they do nipple hide in 4 as well.
Yeah, yes. And I don't know why it was this. I'm like 6 going, okay, this is the 3rd or 4th time I've seen them. I mean, 3 has the most explicit one, because I guess that's not a horny movie. It's just Tom Atkins is.
2 is pretty horny.
2 is actually very horny, yeah, because you got the bathtub one. But and that is everyone, because it's 1981 and everyone is having sex in the worst places. But yeah, it is not a very horny one, and they do try, because that is what kind of slashers kind of ended up being. But it goes to the same thing as like, why did they make Michael the father of Jamie's baby? That just feels wrong, because he's not doing any of that. This is not he can't. He's not fully human. He can't even get it up. I don't understand why they needed to do that. But just a weird thing I've just noticed, that the Halloween loves a nipple hide.
Yeah, it's a bummer, but it's like the one thing with Michael that I just can't forgive. But the rest of it, I'm cool. I'm cool with watching Michael stand around a ceremony. It's kind of funny. I like it.
It is very weird. It's just he's that awkward guy in the room at a party. You're just like, oh yeah, how's it going? But we might as well get into the ending, especially involving Donald Pleasance. It's I think it kind of hit me how tragic this is because Donald Pleasance is the through line of the series until this movie, because he passed away in real life. But to make him tied to Michael forever, I think it kind of is a perfect way to end the movie. It's actually a really cool way to end the movie, and the greatest tragedy as well. And it does leave you a bit kind of shook afterward, especially because of the fact you just end on like a jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the ending of Cult of Chucky, which is another ending that I know a lot of people don't like, where it seems to say that the story is going in a dramatically new direction, where Michael has ditched his mask, he's ditched his mechanic suit, he's put on the Man in Black suit, and it seems like we're moving towards a new Michael, a Michael that's maybe a cult leader or something. which, you know, they probably made the right decision never making that movie, because I think a lot of people, most everyone would hate it.
Oh, yeah.
Because everyone wants to watch Michael with a mask and just silently stab people. And I get it. But like I said, I like horror franchises that move stories forward. And it's kind of an exciting ending that's crazy that like Michael's going in this new direction. I kind of wish there was an alternate universe where like we see an actual sequel to Halloween 6 and see where that goes.
It would be interesting. I'm not even sure I would love it because I'm so tied to the mask. I don't know how long it would take me to go, okay, Michael doesn't have the mask. He's a cult leader. He's now in his own full control. Because that's what I love about it, because he's kind of been an automaton for the most of this movie. The cult has been kind of directing him, but kind of not. They know if they push him toward the house, he will go and kill whoever is in there. But this one, he's like, oh no, I now have fully embraced the power of Cult of Thorn. No one can stop me. And now I run Haddonfield, because you soon get to realize this is an actual Rosemary's Baby situation, and most of the head of the town is involved in this cult. So they've been wanting Michael to kind of keep going. But yeah, the fact that he's like, oh no, I'm just doing what I want is even more terrifying than him in the mask. But it'd be interesting to see how I'd react to a sequel to Halloween 6.
Wouldn't it be cool? And I know this is like major fan fiction, but if we could see a sequel to Halloween 6 that also reveals it is also a canonical sequel to Halloween 3, and like the Cult of Thorn and the whatever the cult is in Halloween 3 like are one, and okay. So I'm working through this in my head. So it reveals that like during Halloween 6, the Halloween 3 stuff is also going on. So like it's a sequel to Halloween 3 and 6 simultaneously. So we've also got children that have all the bugs in their heads and everything. And that event has just happened. And this is just a crazy movie I'm describing right now, but I want to see it.
I actually kind of want to see that as well. Just everything just popped off that one night. And then I think because Hayden came up with this brilliant idea of writing a sequel to Halloween 3 of what happened when the night all the children didn't come home.
He did. Yeah, he did.
That would be amazing. Never happened though. It will never happen.
Oh no, like people just want to watch Michael walk around and kill people. And I get it. That's totally fine. And they'll keep making those movies forever, just like they'll keep making Dracula movies forever. And that's fine with me.
Exactly. I will watch the new Dracula movie as much as I will go see a new Halloween movie. I mean,
Definitely.
I didn't love The Invitation as much as you did, but the fact that it was a new Dracula movie, I was very happy about. I'm going to go see Kills. I have my issues with Halloween. No, wait, I'm going to see Ends because I had my issues with Kills, so I'm getting them confused. But I'm going to see Ends. Yeah, but I'm going to see Ends because Evil will die tonight. No, we won't. He never does.
I'm looking forward to Ends. I'm going to go see it, but I admit I don't like the trailers so far because they make it look like it's like Batman versus Superman, like it's some kind of superhero beatdown movie of like Michael versus Laurie, who's going to win? And I don't know. That's not really the vibe I want from my Halloween movie.
No.
Like, why are we? I don't know. It may not be that, but it feels like it's turning into a superhero franchise.
It kind of does. And it's kind of weird at the moment how everything kind of just turns into a superhero franchise at the moment, even though it's not a superhero. As much as I love the new Godzilla Hong Kong, King Kong movies, also superheroes. That's what they are.
Yes.
So I think everything kind of, we want, as much as we want Michael to be this mysterious creature of evil, we also want him to be a superhero or a supervillain. And I think it's the trick of, okay, so you want two things that completely oppose each other. So how do we do that? And it's going to be interesting to see where Ends actually lays the line. If it is going to be Superman versus Batman, or if it's actually going to be more of this is a supernatural creature, so we might as well just bring in Cult of Thorn and just fuck everyone.
And most every Halloween movie, when you look back on them, is very much a product of the era that they came out in. Yes. Halloween 2 is jumping off of Friday the 13th, and you've got obviously H2O is jumping off of Scream. The Rob Zombie movies are in that extreme remakes kind of phase.
Yes.
And these new movies, like, what is the defining thing about movie pop culture right now? It's superheroes, and that's what they're jumping off of, it feels like. So this is the trend this franchise goes in.
Oh, it's always that. I mean, even when I was watching 4, I'm like, oh, this is what late because I was would have already been out, so I paired it with the Terminator with Rob. And I just kept thinking, oh, this is what late 80s genre was. It was Halloween 4. This is the kind of the prototype. And even watching 6, when Dimension hasn't quite figured out how to market horror yet. They're trying. They're really, really trying, but it's not going to be until the next year when Scream comes out. And they're like, oh, this is what people want. They want this. And that is when H2O, they bring back Michael again, because they're like, okay, now we know what people want. They want the Scream Halloween. They don't want the Court of Thorn Halloween. Okay, we know what we're doing. But yeah, that's what I'm really learning doing this series, is that how much Halloween is a product of its time, like more so than most other slashers, I think.
It is kind of remarkable when you look back at Dimension that they actually let Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven do their thing and make Scream the way they wanted, and they didn't screw it up.
Yeah,
that's pretty great.
Dimension has a habit of screwing things up. It had to be, Dimension. I mean, I know people sort of say A24 has like a sort of a brand in how they make movies. I'm like, no, that was Dimension. Dimension had an absolute blueprint of how they wanted their movies to look, feel, cast, everything like that. I mean, that is why they got the really pretty boy to play Tommy Doyle, who ended up being Paul Rudd, is because they wanted that that young TV cute kind of thing going on, and that goes through definitely into H2O, and that is how they just fully cast it. But yeah, I still can't believe that somehow Will Williamson and Wes Craven got away with Scream. It's insane.
Yeah, because it was something like so bold and new. Like, it's surprising they weren't like, just make it a regular slasher. Like, don't try to reinvent the wheel here, you know?
And they're like, no, we're going to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, and thank goodness, because that's an awesome movie.
Oh, it's an amazing, amazing movie. Anything else you want to say about Halloween 6?
Yes, I have to shout out Marianne Hagen, who plays Kara Strode.
Yes.
Who's really the final girl of this movie. And I love her. I think like she's probably the most underrated final girl in the Halloween franchise. I like that her and her family are relatives of the Strodes, because like it's not too closely related, but it's still connected to it further connects this movie to the original Halloween. So I like that. I think she gives a great performance. I really like the character. I think making her a young single mom who had to move back in with her parents just kind of instantly gives sympathy for her character and instantly tells us a lot about her. So that's a good move for economical storytelling. And I recognize the guy playing her dad is like cartoonishly awful, but he's another thing that like adds conflict to the movie, which is interesting and furthers our sympathy for her. So I also think I just kind of think everything about her character was really well done.
It really is. I think she is really good. And also I did purchase a long skirt after wearing in this movie, because I always forget how comfortable she looks. She's dressed up like a mom, like, because she is a single mom. So they don't try to sexy up the final girl, but she is really good. And she is just really just concerned about, I mean, that moment where she's trying to get her son to walk over an unconscious Myers, and even I'm just like, no, this is not a good idea. I still jump when his hand comes out and grabs her leg. It's still really effective, but I love the fact, I did write this on my notes, so thank you for reminding me, that the family is stuck in this house, and you can tell the father's absolutely cartoonishly awful, but there is the sense of the Strodes as just as cursed as the Myers. They're forever linked. They're linked to this house, which they cannot move away from because they can't afford to. No one wants to buy it because it's the Myers house. And he somehow, and I wanted to say Mrs. Strode, Kara's mother, is played by Kim Darby, who was the original Maddie in True Grit with John Wayne.
Holy shit, that is an amazing fact.
Yeah. And she is just so beat down that all she can say is, can't we get along, when her husband is verbally abusing both of her children. It's just this portrait of this cursed family. And it just, leans into the whole these people are screwed from the get-go. There's no getting out of this. So yeah, thank you for reminding me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I certainly hope that in the housing market we're in right now, that people will no longer say, why don't they just move? Because
yes,
we should all understand by now.
You just can't move. There is no moving.
No. I feel like so lucky that my wife and I bought a house like just before things went really insane. And now I'm like, well, we can probably never move, but at least we have a house. So that's good.
That is like us. We bought just before everything went really, really nuts. And it's kind of weird when you realize if you were going to try and buy your house today, it's like, I actually couldn't afford it.
Yeah, right. I just saw like a news article that like Jeff Bezos is buying up tons of houses to like rent out. And so he's like cleaning out the market. It's so sad.
Oh God. Yeah, that needs to stop.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, and on that note, we're going to be getting into another actually very well, it's not actually, no, this movie looks grim, but I don't think it is. The Empty Man. Another unloved studio movie that was on the shelf and then got dumped because of the Disney Fox deal. You're just watching this movie and I can understand what Disney did, but it's just such a shame that this happened to this movie. Curtains are opening again. Daniel, what is going to be your first trailer for The Empty Man?
Okay, well, I love that the Schlock and Awe movie theater is showing this movie because almost no one got the chance to see this movie in theaters. I certainly didn't.
Me neither.
But so glad that we're showing it. The first trailer I'm going to show is for a movie that admittedly I don't love. I like it. I respect it. But I think it's one of the most comparable movies I've ever seen to The Empty Man. And it's Ben Wheatley's Kill List from 2011.
1, 2, 3. Abracadabra. Bad people. We should suffer.
Oh, I do actually love the Kill List, but I have no desire to see it again.
Yeah, like it's a deeply unpleasant movie.
It really is.
But it's very good. It has a very similar feel to The Empty Man, I think, the sort of like detective angle, except the main character is definitely not a detective. He is a hitman. Who, by the way, I think it's so cool how long the movie holds back the information that he is a hitman.
Yeah.
And for a while, like him and his wife keep arguing because he's unemployed and he won't go back to work. And then you realize, oh, back to work is to be a hitman. Okay. Yes. And the wife even knows, like he's not even keeping it a secret from her.
No, she's fully aware. It's like, you need to go back to work. And it's like, I don't want to. It's like, I can understand why you don't want to.
Yeah, but the rabbit hole he sort of goes down with discovering this cult kind of reminds me of The Empty Man. And the ending is the reason I don't know if I can ever watch this again. It's so unbelievably nihilistic and horrific. And like, I don't want that in my head again, but it is still a very good movie. And I think it's just the right vibe to lead us into The Empty Man. It
really, really does. But I will say that ending does push the thumb on the nerve a bit too hard, which is why I have not wanted to. And there are other Ben Wheatley movies I have happily gone back to, but this is the one I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can because I know what that ending is. And it's, it pushes the nerve a little too hard, a little bit too horrific. There's a certain just one moment I'm just like, oh God, I don't know if I can quite do that again.
Yeah, and I did not see it coming. And like I knew everyone talked about the twist with this movie, and I was like, oh, the twist is like that the people he's involved with is a cult, and we discovered that. So I was like, okay, I know. But the twist I did not see coming, and that really took me off guard.
It really did, which is actually what happened with the first time I watched The Empty Man. So this was a really interesting process for me to go back and how I felt about the actual twist. Again, we will be spoiling this. Okay, so for my first trailer, I'm going to go for, I still think it's underrated Stephen King adaptation because it just really kind of hard to see. But that is The Night Flyer from 1997.
One 101 Bravo Lima. Come in, over. I can't have you sitting in the middle of my runway. Respond, over.
like. Now you will know.
This is about a reporter he's a tabloid reporter who has a plane, so he flies around the country, basically going, my wife is Bigfoot kind of stories. And then there happens to be also a vampire who has a plane flying around the country eating people. And it is actually a really, really good movie. And it's kind of sucks that it's so hard to see because it's a movie that stars Miguel Ferrer, who did not star or hold up a lot of movies. And yeah, it's just a really cool little Stephen King movie, which I got more attention. And it is very much about the thing that you are hunting that you become. And it's got one of the most amazing end sequences that is bloody and gory, but so done so artfully that it's amazing.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking to our friend Matt Bledsoe about this because I saw he watched it on Letterboxd, and I texted him like, "How did you see this movie?" Because I've always wanted to see it, and it's so unavailable. And he told me he just watched it on YouTube, so I didn't know it was on YouTube. So I will be checking it out soon because it's like I don't know why they can't put this out on Blu-ray, and the DVD is historically out of print, and you can't stream it. Very sad, but. Now that I've found out there's a way to see it, I will be checking it out soon because I love Stephen King and I love vampires. So I got to see this.
This is really great because I have a really old DVD, which I'm never getting rid of because it is so out of print.
Yeah.
But the fact that it is on YouTube is fantastic because that will get people you can actually see this now. And it is really it's smart. When you say it's one of those great Stephen King synopses when you said, oh, it's a vampire flying around in a plane and you're like, what? And then you watch the movie and you realize it's more intelligent it's more in depth than it is, which is kind of like a Stephen King thing for me, which is usually the ones I love of his. It's like, oh, wait, there's giant rats in a basement? What? And then you watch Night Shift and go, that movie was deranged.
I've never seen Night Shift either.
It's fun. It's not the best adaptation of one of it. It's not my favorite short story of his, but it is fun for pure the Brad Dourif performance.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
check that out for sure.
Yeah. What is going to be your second trailer?
Okay, so I went back and forth about this one because it's so recent. But if we're talking about cosmic horror and an ancient god, which is at least kind of what The Empty Man is. I gotta show the trailer for Glorious.
Oh, I didn't even 2022.
Think of this. Everything all right over there, my friend?
I'm not much of a bathroom talker.
You're not in the least bit curious as to what I have to say.
I'm just not into conversations with random dudes hiding out in bathroom stalls.
No one is coming to help you, friend.
So you're a god living in a rest stop bathroom in a stall that's glory hole adjacent.
I am he. I am that god. The universe has a favor to ask. You need to satisfy my physical form. There's only one part of you that can do that.
Yeah, Rebecca McKendry, very different from The Empty Man in tone, for sure. But for as influential as H.P. Lovecraft is, there really aren't a lot of his movies that there aren't a lot of movies that really deal with Lovecraft's ideas about ancient gods and that really weird, heady cosmic horror. And Glorious is one of my favorites that I've seen. I think this movie is super fun and entertaining. Despite the fact that it's really only one actor in a room interacting with another actor's voice.
Yeah,
I went into this movie kind of expecting that would get boring and tedious. Never got boring for me. I mean, it's only 79 minutes. I thought it was really entertaining. I thought it looked great. I thought the actors were really good. And it came out at a great time because I've felt recently like I haven't been connecting with indie horror as much as I used to.
Yeah.
And this came along and it was a Shudder movie, which I often don't vibe with Shudder movies as much as I wish I did. And I really, really connected with this one. So I was so happy to find a movie like that I could really love.
No, I've been a little in the same boat, especially with Shudder movies, because there's sometimes one I'll go, okay, this is really, really great. and then I'll watch a few more. I'm like, okay, that didn't really need to. Okay, fine. It's a shadow movie. But if you've ever listened to Rebecca McKendry on her multiple podcasts, you know how much she loves Lovecraft. So I was like, well, I know she loves this. And this is probably the thing she's been trying to get toward through everything she's been making. Because I do actually really like her Christmas horror anthology. And watching it, I was like, yes, because this is a movie that just really wants to dig into the idea of an ancient god. Because it is literally one guy in a disgusting public bathroom on a roadside dealing with this voice and a glory hole in one of the stalls. And that's kind of where it begins and that's where it stays. But what you go through and the ideas that are packed into this movie it's all very Lovecraftian. And it's kind of one of the best Lovecraftian adaptations I've seen since Dagon. And of course, that was Stuart Gordon, who was the master of, it's him and Carpenter who know how to do a Lovecraftian movie. But Dagon is the last one I've seen that I've gone, oh, actually, there's another one, but the director's a piece of shit. But that movie, which I do like, but just because I was so high in that movie, and then you find, anyway, Dagon was such a delightful surprise, and so was Glorious. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love Dagon. It's one of the other great movies about a ancient god. And this is a really good one. What the moment that I love so much in Glorious is when we the audience and the main character think we know what the god is asking for, and then the main character puts it through the hole. And then the god is like, no, I want this. And what he wanted, I was like, that is so fucking crazy. And I did not know we were going there.
No, neither did I. And again, it's a movie I have to watch again because I was thrown by the twist. I kind of didn't see it coming because I wasn't paying that much attention to where this movie was going, because I was like, I'm with ancient gods and I like it. But I need to go back and reconcile. Okay, this is what the twist is. So this is now what the movie is. Now I need to watch it fresh with a little fresher eyes, much like The Empty Man. So this is absolutely a perfect trailer. I love it. But yeah, you're right. When you find out what the god actually wants, you're like, oh, I didn't know we were going here. Yikes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Really cool movie.
Very, very cool movie. If you hadn't seen it and you think, oh my God, it's a shadow movie, it's one of those ones that actually has some legs to it. It's really, really interesting. Okay. My next trailer. Now, this is my way of working it around that all I wanted to do was, because we did actually talk about this, I wanted to show the Bye Bye Man as a trailer, but I don't want to show the Bye Bye Man as a trailer.
So you're going Slender Man instead, I assume.
Not quite. I went past that because I watched the trailer and realized that there's only a reason why I've only seen half of the Bye Bye Man and half of the Slender Man. Then I went to Beware the Slender Man, which is a documentary about the Slender Man, but that feels way too exploitative because that is actually about a real tragedy, and I don't want to have that mood into what The Empty Man is, because The Empty Man is kind of grim enough. So I'm going for another Joey King movie that is about, well, you dig multiverses as well. I'm going Wish Upon from 2016.
Claire, you find anything?
Seven wishes. My bad. I wish Darcy Chapman would just go rot. I can wish for anything. Money.
Get in. What is happening right now?
Love. Did that just happen?
There have been others who've had the box. They and everyone they loved all died. When the music ends, the blood price is paid. It's a demon.
What does it want?
Your soul.
Very nice. Wow. Very weird tone to go into The Empty Man with.
Very weird tone. And maybe I should have done that first and then done Night Flyer, but we are going with Wish Upon before we get into the Empty Man. But yeah, this is me working around the fact that there was a trend in the that I think we've forgotten because of the pandemic, where we had these kind of memes as horror movies. And this is what I thought The Empty Man was going to be. But Wish Upon surprised me, mainly because it's so ridiculous that I was not expecting it to be that height of Ryan Philippe playing a saxophone and digging on multiverses and whatever that line is. And I'm like, okay, I'm actually having fun with this now because I didn't expect it to be this outlandish or silly, that kind of thing. So I'm actually enjoying myself. Same thing happened with The Empty Man, but in a much more different tone. So, but yeah, we did actually get Joey King in there somewhere.
Nicely done. Yeah, I kind of love this trend that happened in like the really late 2010s.
Yeah.
Of like really, really dumb, trashy, theatrical teen horror.
Yes.
Where all the actors and the characters are taking it dead serious.
Yep.
And acting like it's not stupid. This is one. Friend Request is one. Countdown is one. I like all these movies. Like, they're really dumb, but like, my God, they are stone-faced about it. And I think it's really entertaining.
Yes, because Countdown, they are taking everything so seriously. And I'm just watching it going, it's an app. What? Are we doing haunted apps now? But yeah, and Friend Request is exactly that as well. I like Friend Request.
I like Friend Request too.
And I'm kind of warming up on Countdown because the first time I'm halfway through watching, I'm like going, this might be the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I had not seen, no, it was actually after saw Bye Bye Man, which I thought was the dumbest thing I'd ever seen. There's a florist called Mr. Daisy in it. I'm not kidding. But Bye Bye Man has a sin of being boring. Same with The Slender Man. Truth or Dare, Friend Request, Wish Upon are not boring. They are the dumbest.
Truth or Dare.
Yeah, they are dumb. Everyone's taking it ultra seriously, but when you're watching it, you're like going, this is ridiculous. What is going on? But they are generally entertaining. Like, it's something on screen that's always going to keep you entertained, regardless of the fact that what you're watching is what is a music box that makes wishes? I forget actually what Wish Upon the crux is. I can remember everything else.
It's something like that, at least.
Yeah, that makes wishes, and she keeps wishing for things and then trying to fix the wish that she made that screwed everything up, but it's starting to kill people because it's a cursed object, which I actually really do like in movies. I love when we get a good cursed object, and then when you watch Countdown, it's like literally haunted app.
I love the scene in Wish Upon when Ryan Philippe is playing the saxophone for his daughter and her teenage friends, and they're all like super turned on by it. Like, oh my God, your dad is so hot. It's such a strange scene to put in a mainstream teen movie.
Yes. And I adore Joey King. I love where her career is going. I mean, give me more The Princess, but yeah, this is a weird time in her career.
Joey King is so strange because I feel like she's not a star and she's not famous, but then like she kind of is, and she keeps being in movies and people talk about her. And I'm like, wait, is Joey King a star? Did this happen?
I think she is. I think that she's a part of the ensemble of Bullet Train kind of proves that she's like now just officially a star.
Oh my God, she is. I didn't see that, but yeah, I saw that in the trailer.
Yeah. I'm like, even forgot, I'm like, wait, Joey King's in this? What's she doing in this?
Yeah, she's like in the new Brad Pitt movie. She's like a legit star. And I guess the Kissing Booth movies did it because I think those are kind of popular because there's like 3 or 4 of them.
Yes, there is Netflix. It's those quiet Netflix ones that you just like, that will just keep trucking along that aren't Stranger Things, like Cobra Kai and the Kissing Booth. They're just going to keep making them.
Yeah. Chris Hurtado, when you do an Inside the Sequel episode on Kissing Booth 2.
Yes. Yeah, when is it? When is it happening? So with that weird tone, we're going to, shift in tone because we are going to be going into David Pryor's The Empty Man. And from the first shot, you can tell this guy has worked with Fincher, has studied David Fincher, and is going to make a movie that is in the style of David Fincher.
Hey, wait. We gotta try it.
Try what?
Calling the Empty Man.
Who's the Empty Man?
If you're on a bridge and you find a bottle, you blow into it, and you think about the Empty Man. Oh, come on, Mandy. How old are you?
Tell him the rest.
On the first night, you hear him. And on the second night, you see him.
And on the third night?
Well, on the third night, he finds you. He finds you. You can hear him, can't you? Squirming his way into your thoughts. Like a disease. And his message is contagious.
love The Empty Man, and I generally love it even more after watching it this time. So you probably did the exact same thing everyone else did, heard about it in 2020 and went, wait, what is this Empty Man movie everyone keeps talking about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I remember, I think the first big time I heard about it was Chris Stuckman put out a video about it, about how like, hey, everyone needs to go watch and support this movie. I think that was the first time, but sometimes I put off movies, at least movies at home, too long just because of length. And it's like a horror movie that's like 2 hours and 15 minutes. And I put it off for a bit, but it's on HBO Max. And I checked it out one night when I was home alone, and I watched it in my basement in the dark. And it was a really, really scary movie watching experience. And I loved it. Like I think this is the most effectively creepy movie in a long time. Like, I'm not sure what is the last movie that is this creepy.
I can't either, because I was trying to think about this. I'm like, when was I generally scared? Now, I'm a wuss, so I will get a little bit spooked by Insidious and even The Conjuring, which is meant to be the PG-13 haunted house series. But
when they came out, those creeped me out a lot too.
Yeah, so, but there's something really dark about The Empty Man, and I was really just trying to think about, okay, so when has this, because you're right, I saw this on Twitter, people saying Disney's just dumped it when they bought Fox, you should go watch it. And I was in lockdown, and so I had plenty of time to watch it, because I do the same thing at home. If a movie's like over 2 hours, I'm like, how much time do I really have? If I'm in a cinema, I'll watch a 4-hour movie, fine, but because I'm going out to do it. But I'm at home, I'm like, so I had time.
I had time for 2 90-minute movies, but I don't have time for a 2.5-hour movie.
Exactly. That is so true. Oh, I have time to watch 2 90-minute movies, but at 1 2.5-hour movie, oh, come on.
Exactly.
Yeah. So started down, watch it. I was upstairs, watched it in the dark, and was generally creeped out, especially when you have James Badge Dale walking into the actual, when you see the cult trying to conjure another tulpa. You don't know what that's happening then, because the first time it's like, what is that whispering? What are they actually trying to do? And it's insanely creepy. And then when it goes out and the thing, and it's not even that much lighter, and it's raining, because this movie is permanently overcast. It is not, this is a movie where sun does not touch anything in it. And it's, I mean, and we're not even into the thing with the fire scene, but holy, and the friggin' video. Oh, there's so many things where I'm just like going, okay, I'm actually generally creeped out.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it just has so much. It has so many great horror scenes. Like, some horror movies may only have 1 or 2. This has a lot. Like, first of all, you have the opening.
Yes.
And the opening is incredible. It's like 20-25 minutes with characters that mostly we won't see again for the rest of the movie, but they feel like they're going to be the main characters for the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it is an incredibly creepy sequence, because for, I think, 3 reasons. No, 4. 4 reasons it's super scary. One is the skeleton that they find underground is an incredible image. If this movie had nothing else good to offer except for the image of that skeleton, it would still be a movie to remember.
It would.
So you got that. You've got how the one guy reacts to it, and the way that it steals his humanity completely is so scary, because it's so unknown and none of his friends have any idea what's wrong with him. Then, to top it all off, they're isolated in a snowy area where they can't possibly quickly go to get help. It's going to be a big journey to be able to contact anybody.
Yeah.
And then the very end of this sequence is the murder is so scary. And the thing that really chills me is when the girl just casually drops off the edge.
Yes, it is, because you don't, that, I mean, it's a short little movie on itself. Even if one of the characters does not return to it, it still would have been an amazing opening, because it's setting up the rules, but it's doing it in such a way you don't comprehend. Even I'm still having, The Empty Man is such a beguiling movie, is that I'm still not 100% sure what The Empty Man is. I'm still not 100% sure what is exactly happening, especially in terms of James Badge Dale. What is a memory? What is actually happening? everything. Is he walking around the town? What is actually happening? But that opening sets up the rules so perfectly, but in a way that I'm just like, this is just creepy. There's a moment when one of the girls is he's pretty much comatose, like he's lost all his humanity. It's like his soul has been taken out of his body. She's sitting there. She blows in the instrument because they're in the middle of Nepal as well. So this is like completely snowy kind of cabin in Nepal. And she blows on it and then everything goes silent. As the wind stops, everything stops. And it's such a creepy thing of, oh, they are not even in a plane of humanity now. Something's been taken away. And you don't know what. And the fact that I love the look after she slits her friend's throat and her friend just gives her a look of not even confusion, but just sadness of, oh, you did this. And then it's just pushed off the thing is such a haunting scene in a movie that has that kind of hauntingness throughout it. It's, yeah. And then that whisper just sounds so sinister. It's not even a whisper. You just hear this. I can't even do it on the microphone. But yeah, it's this kind of series of like very quiet sounds.
Yeah.
That is creepy.
Super, super effective. Yeah. And like when I first saw this movie and I saw that opening, like I was completely hooked. Like the movie could go anywhere and I would go with it because it was one of the scariest things I'd seen in any movie in a long time. And we're only like 20 minutes into this really long film.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, where is it going to go? And then all of a sudden you are in Missouri and you meet James Badge Dale, who's also called James, which I find this very, very easy for me because I'm not going to mix up the actor and character like I always do. Yeah. Same name. And then you see him and you're like, what is going on? And the movie is so fractured and so weird that you don't understand the conversation he's having when he first interacts with Amanda in the movie. They're talking like they know each other. And then watching it this time around, like going, they actually don't. She's giving him weird advice, but it makes no sense. And he even has a look in his face of like, yeah, I have no idea what you're saying to me at all. You're talking about the mind and something about grief. And I still don't know what that conversation's about. When you're watching it the first time, you're just like, okay, there's obviously something I'm not getting. And now you're just watching it going, yeah, still not getting it at all. I kind of know why, but I still don't understand it. And this is the brilliance of this movie. It captivates you while keeping you at arm's length because it's purposely being that beguiling.
Yeah, it does an amazing job keeping you at arm's length, keeping answers away from you, but still doling out information slowly enough or quickly enough, rather, that you don't kind of give up. Like you're always engaged and so curious where it's going to go. It was really cool to rewatch this movie. This was my first time rewatching it since I first saw it because, it's cool watching it knowing James's backstory, because you watch it the first time, there are a lot of conversations where you don't really know what they're talking about, like you kind of reference. So it is really cool to watch it again, knowing all of that and just feeling that sadness even more. Because I recognize the very end of the movie changes how we think about the backstory somewhat. Yes. But taking that out of account, still, his backstory is horrifyingly tragic. It is so sad, but it's also like not like the end twist of Kill List is so nihilistic and depressing, but it's also something that could probably never ever happen in a zillion years. The backstory for James and the Empty Man could happen, like it's plausible, and it's like the most tragic chain of events, and it makes a rewatch really interesting because the very end of this movie actually doesn't change how I feel about it. I still feel very sad for these people, even knowing what we find out at the end. Kind of talking around a lot right now. We're
talking about, I have sort of mentioned creating tulpas, but which this movie does actually talk about. I forgot how much they talk about that during the movie, that, concentration plus time equals flesh. Like it is this very David Cronian idea that you can kind of create flesh out of nothing, which is essentially what is happening in this movie. The only character that I think changed for me was Amanda, who was the teenager that supposedly goes missing, that James Badge Dale has to try and track down. She is
speaking of the Wicker Man.
Speaking of the Wicker Man, missing girl. and to a horrifying conclusion that she's been in it the whole entire time. No, she's the one that kind of changed, because I was going, you're in on it. The only thing I sort of was, well, there's many things that still beguile me about this movie, but I'm just like, this cult is full of teenagers or kids in their early 20s doing this. And she's said that she's in high school. Whether actually you could question all the reality of this movie, because you have no idea what reality you're actually watching in a sense. Except if it wasn't for her friend who is murdered in the shower, I would have said might not even been in high school. This could have just been a complete fabrication. But yeah, I was watching her as more as a femme fatale, like just really manipulating everyone she's coming into contact with. And
right, yeah,
she became much more fascinating to me just then as because she's kind of, you think she's the MacGuffin, but she's the one she is kind of just going out of her way to manipulate everyone.
Yeah, gives a really great performance too. She reminds me of Mia Goth in A Cure for Wellness. Did you see A Cure for Wellness?
I have, yes. And you're right, she does. Yeah.
That also could have been a trailer before this movie. I think they kind of have a similar vibe. Also similar length. They're both really long. And so I could see this girl and obviously Mia Goth is really blowing up with the Ty West trilogy. I actually just saw Pearl today. It's great.
I can't wait to see it.
Is it out in Australia yet?
No, they're doing that
soon.
I have no idea. They're doing that thing where they're just not announcing it, and then they'll just say, "Oh, by the way, it's out next week." I'm like, you could have told me that.
At least it's a movie that's kind of spoiler proof because it's a prequel, and it's really all about Mia Goth's performance, and the overall atmosphere of it is most important.
But that is why I want to see it, because I know where it leads into X. I'm just like, I want to see this movie.
It's really, really cool. But anyway, all that to say, I could kind of see this girl maybe blowing up in a similar way if there are some directors that can give her similar opportunities. Yeah,
because she does have that thing that Mia Goth has where she seems vulnerable when you're first looking at her, but then she's really good at sort of beguiling you, going, no, I'm not that vulnerable, especially in X. When you first meet Mia Goth and you think she's the one kind of being manipulated a little bit, but then you realize, no, this is fully the Mia Goth show. She's not being manipulated. She absolutely is the strongest person in the movie and proves it, which I'm guessing similar to Pearl. And I cannot wait for that. The Mia Goth X trilogy. Yes. But she does a similar thing. You think she's very frail. And then throughout the movie, you realize, no, she is not. She's the strongest. She is literally, in all senses, the strongest person in this movie.
Yeah, it's sure not James.
No.
That's for sure. Even I love the first scene with him because it tells us so much about what a bad place he's in. So he's out to dinner by himself. He uses a coupon for a free birthday meal, which is kind of a sad thing for any 40-year-old man to do.
Yes.
And then servers come and sing him happy birthday while he's sitting there alone.
They don't know his name.
Like the scariest scene in the movie.
I just look at happy birthday customer. I'm just like, oh no.
It's such an economical storytelling, right? It tells us instantly so much about where he is in life.
It is. And it is. I love him in the store. James, he does this so often in this movie. I was just loving his performance. He's always slightly off kilter. And you think it's because it's where he is in his life, that he's in this very dark, lonely place. And he's kind of going through the motions, but he is very good at helping the lady who wants the spray. And he goes, no, you have to shake it so I can actually, and it's cheaper, which feels like a throwaway line or even a ADR or something. But it's just this kind of his performance. I love when Nora's come to see him, she's bringing food and she goes, let me guess, you forgot to eat. And he goes, no, I didn't forget. It just didn't occur to me. And she's left and he's holding the bottle of wild turkey, whatever it is. And he just leans against the wall before he goes to bed. It's these little moments of, I'm not with it, which serves as someone who is deeply, chronically depressed, and to someone who has only just metamorphosized in the last 3 days. It's that very off kilter. You don't quite belong in the world. You're very isolated, and he plays it so perfectly. I mean, again, this is another guy who should be blowing up. I sometimes just watch the final credits to Iron Man 3 just because I love his credits so much.
That's right. He is in Iron Man 3.
Yeah, and really great in Iron Man 3. Again, he's one of those idiosyncratic directors. The way he sits in a chair has to be weird. He's always doing some sort of, he's a business actor. Like he's always doing something. His hands are always doing something when he's on screen, which I love.
He seems like an actor to me that is a little bit out of time, and he seems very old-fashioned.
Yes.
I remember thinking when I first saw the movie, like, he's great. He's very good in the movie, but he seems an unusual lead for a movie today because he just seems like a guy. And I think we kind of demand more quirkiness from movie stars today. Like we want Chris Pratt funny, or we want
Paul Rudd,
Chris Pine snarky, or we want Paul Rudd. Yeah. And James Badge Dale is almost like a 1940s leading man where he's just like a masculine man. And like, that's what he is. And he gives a very good performance, very soulful, interesting performance, but he's just a guy. And that all I think really works when we get to the end of the movie. It really serves the story of it. No,
it really, really does. Because he is just this he's obviously very good looking, but he's also, he's just a guy. Like, he's not interesting enough to be an actor of the 70s because he's not hairy enough or broad enough or something enough. But yeah, he's the kind of guy that would have been in a 1940s noir, which is perfect for this movie, especially where you realize where this movie goes. And it's kind of like, oh, this makes complete sense. But he's actually just really good at these little touches that you can kind of, as I said, you can believe he's depressed and you can believe that he's a creation, because he's just a guy. And I don't know, watching this time, I'm just like, I actually really love his performance. I think he's a very good actor, and I kind of hope he's used more. There's an actor who I've actually started to like, who I thought I hated. He's the lead in Predator 2018. Looks like a Ken Barbie doll. But this year he's been in The Cursed, which is a werewolf movie, which just suddenly popped up, which I actually kind of liked. And also as Corinthian and The Sandman. I'm like, oh, so now you're actually choosing interesting stuff, and now I'm kind of liking you. even though you still
I'm not sold. I'm not sold on that guy yet. I saw him in Logan, and I'm like, boy, what a boring villain for this movie.
Oh, I didn't really forget. I forgot he was in Logan.
So we'll see. I need to watch Cursed. I was actually just talking to again, we'll invoke his name. I was again just talking to Hayden about that, and I'm really in a period horror mood lately, so I need to check that out for sure.
I think you might. I don't know if you'll love Cursed, but I think you'll find some stuff really interesting. There's some really interesting stuff in how they deal with werewolves in Cursed.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so I think James Badge Dale is a better actor, but he's kind of got that quality. But I think it's okay, because I know you said off mic you were basically writing a note of like, what is the empty man, and going through it. Okay, what do you think the empty man is?
Oh yeah. So I typed out at the very beginning, what is the empty man, and just started making notes under it. And I haven't really figured it out. But I think that's something that works so well in this movie's favor, in that I think ultimately what we're talking about today is a folk horror double. I don't think either movie immediately makes you think that. You might think that's more of a cosmic horror movie and a slasher, but I do think they're both folk horror films, because this one is ultimately about folklore, about a legend. And I think it works. The legend of this movie works better than a movie like The Bye-Bye Man, or even The Ring, at least the American remake of The Ring, because we can briefly understand what the legend is, and that if you're at a bridge overnight and you blow into a bottle and you think about the empty man, he will come to you. That's easy to understand. But everything else about it is impossible to understand.
Yes.
It's something so beyond us. And I was kind of rewatching it, comparing the movie to some other horror noir films, because I do think ultimately this is also a horror noir. This is a lot of genres together.
It is.
And I was kind of comparing it to Angel Heart. Have you seen Angel Heart?
Yes, I have. And that was very close to being a trailer.
Yeah, they're very comparable movies.
They vary.
And I like Angel Heart. It's good. But when you get to the end of Angel Heart, you're like, okay, so Robert De Niro is this. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
And in this movie, you still don't really get it. It's so unknowable. And that's why, like, I continue to think about this movie while I'll continue going back to it. why it's such an interesting rabbit hole to go down, because it doesn't matter if the movie is spoiled for you. It doesn't matter if you already know it, because you don't know it.
No.
So what is the Empty Man? So I think it's something that I can't decide, like the skeleton left behind. Is it something that used to have a living body and no longer has it? Or is the skeleton what its conduit eventually becomes?
That is,
and
yeah.
It might be the conduit, because I think it's probably something that doesn't have a body. It is some kind of otherworldly cosmic god. I love some of the things that oh gosh, I'm forgetting his name. He's a great actor and he's in Get Out. Who is the actor who
Stephen Root? I made a point of going,
yes.
there's oh yay, Stephen Root sighting, which again, Get Out, possible trailer. But yeah, I'm always happy to see Stephen Root. I do a little fist pump every time he comes in a movie.
Yeah. And he has a lot of interesting things about how the Empty Man exists in the realm of the sum of all consciousness or something.
Oh, the cult
it's
speak,
super weird and heady.
This cult speak he delivers in this movie is astounding. They did a really, because I think David Pryor actually wrote this as well. I want to say he did. I better check on that. But the cult speak, the double speak cult speak in this movie is on point, because they say all the stuff, but it means nothing. They're talking about double consciousness, the consciousness of all, the flesh, the time, the patient's time, whatever it is, conscience equals flesh. You're right. This is a whole bunch of genres put into one. So even when you do find out the ending, which is they've created James Dale Badge out of nothing and given him memory and given him the saddest memory you can possibly give someone. I mean, that is kind of the meanest thing about this, is that they gave him those memories. And just the guilt that this new creature has. You still don't actually understand what this is. And I think it's so fascinating.
Yeah, and Amanda says that the Empty Man can only come through feelings of grief and loss and pain, and that's why they had to give him that.
Yeah,
so sad.
It's
so let's see what else. What else do they say about the Empty Man? They say, I like something the cop says. He says that what's happened to these people is inexplicable. It's too big. We can't indict the cosmos. And there's a guy who says that the Empty Man is the between man. Something just between realities.
That comes up a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. It's something that for some reason compels you to either kill other people or kill yourself. And that I don't know why the Empty Man wants that.
No, that is never explained. Like, one of the creepiest kills is I actually really like her performance. Samantha Logan, who plays Amanda's friend. Her death in the shower is such a well done thing, because it's very long shot. We see her sort of get in. She's already got because it does have that very similar Slender Man, The Ring model, as in you blow into the bottle, you got 3 days, and then you feel, like you see, you hear, and then you feel. And the feel is usually when the Empty Man is going to kill you. Because they set that up in the amazing short film at the beginning. But she kills herself. I mean, that shot of when you see the kind of the ghoulish kind of thing, and then you realize it's actually her holding her own throat and stabbing her face with the scissors, is such a really kind of, oh shit, this is not thing. And yeah, because they are talking about this unknowable, this thing between worlds, this kind of entity that no one can fully understand. It makes this movie something you don't understand. So you're trying to put these pieces together. Look, when I first watched the movie, I was definitely thrown off by the ending, because it's got that beguiling feeling to it. I just put something in that I kind of already knew about, and I only know it because freaking worked in a bookstore far too long, and I have sold The Secret, which is a don't read, for far too. Sorry if you do. Sorry if it's your thing, but it's not mine.
Didn't Katie Holmes just do like a movie adaptation of that?
Yeah, it's just, and I went, did they just fucking The Secret this? And I was so angry, because that's kind of what I thought that was. Now I know it's not. Now I know it's more cosmic horror. Now I know it's that. But that was the first thing there in my head. I went, they fucking word this shit. No, that is not cool. And then I actually, because I couldn't get it out of my head, I started actually reading what a tulpa was. And yes, like James, I went on Wikipedia and put in like tulpa, which by the way, Wikipedia is the new microfiche. But
that's true.
It's true. But yeah, and then I actually learned what it was, and it's much more of a mythical creature than it is something that people picked up for the wellness industry. It's much deeper, it's much darker, it's got much more history behind it. And I went, okay, this is much more interesting than I gave it credit for. So it's interesting how people have taken that ending to go, a what the, or a huh. No, I know the ending through a few people.
And something I like about this movie is that the empty man is definitively real. Like, there are a lot of cult movies where the horror is what the cult does. And is the pagan god that they worship real? Is it not? Is Satan real? Is he not? It doesn't really matter because the horror is what the cult does.
Yeah.
But in this movie, the empty man is definitely real. He takes a physical form, at least in your perception of this hooded figure. It's an amazing visual, by the way.
You never
Especially
quite see him.
Yeah, in the opening when he's standing in the snow.
Oh,
super, super creepy. So he takes a physical form, at least in your perception. I don't think he's actually physically there.
No.
But he is real. He's an actual thing. And I love that. And it's because it's something that we can't understand. It's not like we find out that the devil is here, which we all have our own idea of the devil and we get it. The empty man is not like that. We don't get it. He is a thing in some kind of reality, some kind of dimension, and he is killing people or compelling people to kill themselves or kill each other. It's very, very scary. I love it.
Yeah, especially because I love the bridge scene when Samantha first blows into the bottle, and watching it now, I'm like, oh, she's fully...
That's another one of the great horror scenes in this movie, is the bridge scene.
The bridge scene is so great. I love the beginning of it because it's teenagers hanging out, they're giving each other shit. They're kind of already egging each other on, like this is a group, you can tell, that kind of eggs each other on. And then Samantha just comes in and goes, did you hear about the empty man thing? And which is fully played out as a Slender Man, as a Bye-Bye Man. It's a Candyman. You say his name 5 times and he comes up, which is a lot of how, and I am not dissing the Candyman, like, love it. But it's that kind of play. And then watching this, I'm like, oh, she's trying to get them to blow into the bottle. So she's either, because I'm always a little thing of what the actual timeline is, and this is beforehand, is she testing out the empty man kind of thing of what he can actually do? Or is she just like, screw these fuckers, I'm just going to kill them by getting them to invoke the empty man? And I love how you never know what her motivation is. But watching this time, I'm like, oh, I can clearly see her manipulating these guys to blow into the bottle and to think of it. And then she does it. And because she's in the cult, she's mastered it. She knows how to control them or control it. I don't know. There's so many questions I had.
Do you know what the cult wants from the empty man?
No, I have no idea. I was trying to figure this out because what is the...
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Cult's game plan? It's like the Court of Thorn. I still have no idea what the end game is, but they know of this god. They want to worship him. They realize he has power, but I don't know what their end game is. It kind of feels like they're still trying to figure him out or figure it out. Like there's no, it's like in Glorious how Ryan Quaita, I can never pronounce his name, is trying to figure out what this entity, this voice wants in the bathroom, and it takes a process of figuring it out. You never get to that point in Empty Man. You just know there's a cult. They are using him using the entity in some way, but you don't know why. And that's terrifying.
Yeah, and that's usually where horror is most able to generate scares, is in presenting the unknown to you. And then the more that unknown becomes a subgenre, the less scary it is. And especially we horror fans, still enjoy it, but it's not the unknown anymore. Like, I think The Exorcist showed you devil possession when we had never seen devil possession before. We had heard of it, we've never seen it. And it shows you that. So it's presenting something new to you. And there's very little in horror that is new anymore. We've tread a lot of ground, and I love it, but it's not as scary anymore. But The Empty Man does feel like something new, something that we can't understand. And I think that's one of the reasons that it's one of the creepiest movies I've seen in recent years.
Yeah, even the scene when, and because you still don't know quite what it is, because I was sort of asking you, the timeline of this movie is foggy because is James's interactions with Nora a memory you're seeing, or is it something he thinks is happening?
Gosh, that's a really good question.
And I don't know.
I don't know either. And to be honest, I didn't actually think about it until you said it. Like, what is Nora? Is Nora, one thing that I want to rule out right now is I don't think she's a member of the cult playing along.
No.
I don't think that's the case. I think it's too real. So she's either all in his head and just a memory. Well, she can't just be a memory because he exists now and he's interacting with her along the process of this investigation.
Yes.
So either she's just in his head, or maybe she's been conjured up by them too, maybe accidentally, like she's become too real in his consciousness that she has also sprung forth. I'm not sure.
That could be something, because those scenes between them are very real. They feel very, very real. And I know the whole point is he's meant to have these memories that are so horrific, they just stay with him. The fact that his wife and son died in a car accident while he was with Nora having an affair is this certain sort of steps of thing that you realize, oh, if I had just done this, this or this would never have happened. And the tragedy is it's always going to happen because this is implanted in you. And those scenes between them feel so real, so concrete, and so emotional that when that phone call and she goes, I don't know who you are, it's probably one of the most gut-wrenching parts of the movie, because I'm just like, no, I want you to kiss. You can feel each other. It's a gut punch to the movie, and I think when he kind of realizes, oh, I don't know what reality is, and then you start questioning, okay, so what is actually the reality of this movie? And the fact that David Pryor never lets you into what the reality is, except for maybe very non-lucid moments, is amazing.
Yeah, and we keep coming back around to the fact that it's really cool that this movie is hard to figure out, because it just kind of calls you back to it to think about it more and more. I love the scenes with James and Nora. They're so tragic and so real. I love the moment when she says to him, don't you think we've punished each other enough? We punished ourselves enough, or do you think we're done punishing ourselves now?
Yeah.
Something like that. It's so sad. It does make sense, though, that when you know that the affair isn't real and it's in his head, because I feel like it's weirdly sexy, because it's a very tragic thing that he's having an affair while his family is dying, but it's actually shot in a very sexy way, and she's in this sexy lingerie, and you would just think that an affair like this would be messier, but it didn't really happen. It's all in the fantasy of a man, so it kind of makes sense.
Or the fantasy of a teenage girl implanting it in a man, which it's when Amanda sort of goes, oh, you didn't think I didn't know about the affair you had with my mother, but I'm the one who did it. It's a very cold sentiment, and a very kind of a really cruel way to pull the rug from out of him. I don't know. Yeah, this movie is, I keep using the word beguiling because it gives you just enough information for you to want more, but then at the same time it's going to go, no, sorry, you're going to have to figure out the rest. And you're like, but I don't have the information to figure out the rest. Well, what is happening? But I've got this astounding image of him putting her, unzipping the dress, and him putting the hand on her back under the dress. And that is such a sexy moment for some reason that, a relationship like that would be way messier and way more complicated and a lot more in the dark than that absolutely romantic scene. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's like the fantasy version of that, but it is a fantasy.
It is.
So it makes sense.
It makes complete sense. It is a complete fantasy. This movie keeps doing this over and over again. And yeah, even with the Stephen Root coming up, I went, oh, of course, Get Out would make it. Get Out's kind of doing a similar thing, as in, but it's from the guy coming in and realizing, oh shit, I'm in the middle of a cult, and they're all looking at me like I'm the next prize, kind of like the Wicker Man when he's walking in and going, why is everyone staring at me like I'm a weirdo? That's the same thing, though there's much more different context of what's happening in Get Out. And what I love about The Empty Man, it's kind of told from the kind of perspective as well. Someone who's walked into a cult and gone, why is everyone looking at me? But he is the cult, or he is a manifestation. And that it kind of pulls that trope out from under you as well. It's really smart. Now more I think about it.
So let me ask this. Now that he knows what he is their empty man, as Amanda says.
Yeah.
What now?
Because all you really see, I don't know. What does the empty man do, essentially? He's a conduit for this thing. And it goes back to the question, what does the cult want? Which I don't know, because all you see is that he kills the other poor guy and now is standing in front of these people who are now, much like Hereditary, bowing in front of him. And like, now what? It's like, it's actually like the end of Hereditary, because I don't know what happens after that end either. It's like, what does the cult do now that they have the thing that they want?
Yeah, I was really struck with that on this last watch, because the first time I watched it, I was just like, wow, that's really creepy. But this time I was really kind of stuck on the story and like, where do we go now? The only thing I can think is like, I think it kind of invokes the feeling of like the end of one of John Carpenter's films in the Apocalypse trilogy, that like we're probably just on the brink of the end of the world, something like that.
Like The Thing. Oh, we're just going to sit here and wait a while. Yeah.
The Prince of Darkness.
Yes. Yeah. The end of the world is coming. And this is where it begins. It's like, it ends at the beginning. I think, that's a good way of thinking about it, because whatever the empty man is, or whatever that specter is, it has a lot of power. I mean, it can make people kill themselves. I mean, that scene with all the kids underneath the bridge. Oh, that's
so scary.
So scary. It has wields a lot of power, and now it's essentially, okay, what do these kids want to do with it, and what does Stephen Root want to do with it? And you don't know, because all they've been doing is speaking in this weird cult doublespeak that you don't actually know what they're saying. It's at one of the film festivals I went to, I watched this documentary about Scientology, but it was kind of interviewing people who were still in Scientology. And so many dead eyes. Like, it is, but they say the exact same thing all the time. It's like they're reading off a script. This is kind of like that. And they're speaking in a way that you just don't understand, because they've got their own lingo, their own kind of slang, their own everything. And this is this cult. And you just got going, I still don't know what you're saying. I know you're telling me something that you think is very important. I just can't see through the doublespeak. And politicians do this all the time. Cult leaders, because I have this weird fascination with cults. I blame Netflix because they keep putting documentaries on about, well, I don't so much now.
Yeah, well, it's a very interesting subject.
Yeah, about one, how it's so easy to get involved in one, how people essentially manipulate you, and how they use things like certain innocuous things and then all of a sudden you now are knee deep, and now you are now bowing to a tulpa that you created that houses a ancient god that that is, I don't know if it's malevolent or if it's just pure evil, and you think you know, but it keeps that cult barrier wall up. Like most cults you do get into, you learn their lingo, you learn how it works. Like the Wicker Man, time you see the Wicker Man, you're like, oh, I understand what's happening now. I don't know if these pagan gods are real, but I know they think it's real, and they are now going to kill this man. And now I understand their thinking completely. I don't understand their thinking in this movie. David Pryor does not let you in that far, because you are from a man's point of view who does not understand what is happening. And even when it happens, he still doesn't understand. So it's, it is really about the unknowable. That is what this movie is about, I think.
Oh, yeah. Can I make another declaration?
Yes.
It's going to be controversial.
Ooh.
So this movie gets compared to David Fincher a lot. because the director David Pryor, he worked on a lot of David Fincher documentaries about the making of his movies, so he really learned right alongside David Fincher.
Yeah,
I like this movie better than I like any David Fincher movie.
Ooh, that is going to be controversial. I would agree with it mostly, except for Zodiac.
I don't really love David Fincher.
Yeah.
I like some of his movies. I respect him. He's never been one of my guys. I never really connected with him, but I kind of feel like this movie takes the David Fincher aesthetic, and I don't know. I just think it's like a more interesting story than any David Fincher movies I've seen.
Yes, that's what I would say. Like, I think we were talking enough, Mike, how we like his trashier movies, like Gone Girl, or even I really like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It's when he sort of takes a trashy material and kind of puts that Fincher sheen on it. But in the last few years, I have found things like, especially Fight Club and Seven, I have found less interesting as I get older.
Yeah, I've never liked Fight Club. I just don't. I've seen it like 3 times trying to like it, and I just can't vibe with it. I think it's so aesthetically gross. Like, it's just such a gross movie.
Same with Seven, actually. They're so kind of gross. And I think I liked it when I was a teenager because I thought I was meant to like it. You know, when you're like 17 and everyone was telling you that Fight Club is amazing. So you go watch Fight Club and go, yeah, it's amazing. And then 5 minutes later, you're like going, is it? And even though there are moments in Seven that I love, I'm just not as, because you're right, because it's so disgusting. It feels like there's mold everywhere. And I think Zodiac, I think this is one of his kind of special movies where I think he did something absolutely amazing on it because he kind of did the unseen knowable thing. You're never going to know who the Zodiac killer is, and this is just about the people left with the obsession. The Empty Man, yes, kind of takes the sort of that very clean technique that Fincher has, but I think he is taking that unknowableness to the nth degree. He's like, well, okay, so we don't know, and I don't think it's a direct comparison because I think he is his own filmmaker in the way that he frames shots and does everything like that, but he's taking this unknowable idea and just taking it to the nth degree, and I love when filmmakers take, like in A Curse of Michael Myers, they take an idea and they just take it to the nth degree. Okay, so this is the idea, and they just go, how far can we push this? And Empty Man, he pushes it really, really a long way. I mean, the fact that this movie feels like it should be nearly 2.5 hours, and that feels correct for a movie that is very slowly paced, that is about the unknowable, that keeps your attention this long, I think is an incredible feat. And I did read that this Fox did try to cut it down to 90 minutes, and then it tested worse. It's like, no, because you can't. There is no way you can just push these things together and not have the space to let them breathe.
Yeah, that's a really funny story because the movie got like historically dumped, like dumped worse than almost any movie has ever been dumped in history.
Yeah.
But the Fox merger and the pandemic and all the factors that went into it being dumped also meant that it didn't really get messed with like it would have if it came out during a normal time where the studio was in good shape and it was going to a wide theatrical release. They definitely would have tampered with this a lot more, but I think there was just like a fuck it, we don't care, just put this thing out, you know?
Yeah, and that I think it actually has become one of the recent cult movies I can think of, in the sense that something that is dumped, something that is forgotten, something that was kind of dismissed because the title itself just invokes the Slender Man, invokes the Bye-Bye Man, and anyone who's watched horror in the late 2000 teens is just like, oh, I know what this is going. And then you watch that first scene and you're like, okay, so what is this? And because of that, it got insane word of mouth. That's all you'd hear. No, just go support The Empty Man. You need to go see The Empty Man. This movie needs to be supported because it is really, really good. And it is. And every time I say on Twitter, I'm watching The Empty Man, you just go, oh, that's an amazing movie. Best horror of the 2020s. By the way, it's only been 2 years. We've got a long way to go. But yeah, it's got that kind of feeling toward it, that it does have this weird cult surrounding it. And I think it's because you never quite figure out this movie when you're watching it. You are going to have to watch it multiple times. It's like Lynch in that way.
Yeah, and I hope its cult grows because now it has no physical release whatsoever. Nope. I just read it's been announced HBO Max is dropping it on September 30th, which means by the time this episode posts, it will be gone from HBO Max. So hopefully it still stays on like Vudu and Amazon Prime for rental or purchase, because it is there right now. So at least it can be seen that way. But it's the ways to see this movie are shrinking. They're not growing. And that's kind of scary.
That is scary, because this is the kind of movie that needs to have a rep house play this once a year. Like, okay, we're showing The Empty Man. Come and see it. It needs to get that kind of following. And because we don't watch 3 channels anymore, we're not going to see it all the time. Or we don't have the HBO old model where they would play Beastmaster 600 times. We don't have that model anymore. So the fact that it is, the ways you can see it is shrinking, it is actually on Disney Plus overseas. So hopefully that means Disney will put it on in this... Like Disney Plus
overseas, Disney Plus is insane, and I only learned about it because of you. It's so funny.
I know. It's just like when I was just normal Disney Plus, and then they said, "Oh, we're adding this Star thing, and you can pay an extra bit of money, and you can watch The Predator." I'm like, "Watch The Predator on Disney Plus? Yes, please." And now
American Disney Plus is like, we have to edit a butt out of Splash because it's too dirty.
Yeah, I did watch Bitches and Babysitting, and everyone's calling her, that's train scene, they're calling her a witch. I'm like, I know that's not what they called her. I mean, come on. I haven't seen this movie before, but I know that's not what they did not call her a witch. But yeah, there's 2 sort of versions, but you do have this other version which has everything Fox had, and Fox made some messed up stuff, and it's amazing.
Oh, Fox was great. Like R.I.P. It's so sad they're gone.
And so sad they're gone, except when they just want to remind you, oh, this is Fox Studios. It's like, no, it's 20th century Fox Studios or 21st. Don't give me that. But yeah, this movie was just dumped, and I think it was meant to be, okay, we'll just make as much money off for it, and then it'll get forgotten. And I'm kind of glad that it isn't. So hopefully that means a repertory theater will pick it up. That means hopefully someone will just buy the rights to it and go, hey, we're putting out a fancy Blu-ray of the Empty Man, because as soon as, say, Scream Factory does it, that's when it gets. When they seem to do that, it seems to go big. As soon as I started putting out Hammer Horror, they're like, people are talking about Hammer Horror. I'm like, no one. Only person I knew who talked about Hammer Horror was Daniel, and he started a podcast so we could talk about Hammer Horror. But then so it's kind of putting it out there, even though it's a very niche market, still gets people talking about it. And yeah, people need to talk about The Empty Man more. And yeah, come on, we need a physical release. We need something.
Yes, people need to talk about The Empty Man, watch The Empty Man, go to a bridge at night, blow into a bottle, and think about The Empty Man. Do all of these things.
I will admit, when they sort of talk about how to summon it, it did feel very long-winded. Like usually with, say...
yeah, it's like kind of overly complicated.
It's overly complicated. Like with the Candyman, you say Candyman 5 times. With the ring, you watch a video. With this, you have to go to a bridge, find an empty bottle, blow in it, then think about The Empty Man. It seems like a very long process to get this thing kind of going. Though actually,
like, I'm not blowing into a bottle I found on the ground. That's how you get COVID.
Exactly. This is how it'll happen, people. No, you'll get COVID. This is not a good idea. But in saying that, then David Pryor directs the shit out of that bridge scene, and I'm like going, that is exactly what would happen, but it takes a long time to explain. Yeah, for sure. Great movie. Great movie. I'm so glad we got to talk about it. Yes, go see it. Rent it. Just let the powers that be know that they need to keep this movie around, because I would hate if this movie got forgotten. It is too good for that. Yeah, I would say the 3 scariest movies that I've seen in like the 2010s ish, like my adult life, is The Witch, Hereditary, and The Empty Man. I think those are the 3. Yeah, I think it's... No, I would actually say The Witch as well, because The Witch did screw me up a little bit, but then I just got very happy when the whole, what do you love to live deliciously? I just like, oh, that is the best line ever. Yes. Meme. Yeah. It did. But yes, I would like to live deliciously. No, I think Hereditary fucked me up, because I definitely walked around the house to see if Toni Collette wasn't like hanging upside down from the ceiling. And now I just look at bridges and bottles like very differently from this movie. Anything else you want to say about The Empty Man?
Nope, I'm good. I love doing this episode, and thank you very much for having me.
No, thank you so much for coming on with this double. I know this was, I think, the first Halloween movie I pitched, because I was like, hang on, Curse of Michael Myers and Empty Man, that would go great. And then the series kind of sprang up. So thank you for saying yes to come on and do this.
Oh, absolutely. You really catered to my taste when you asked for this.
I'm so glad. Please tell people where they can find your good work.
You can find the Cobwebs podcast on any podcast app. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at CobwebsPod. You can find me personally on Twitter at Epler Daniel. And I counted recently, I think this is my 10th schlock and awe. So thank you very much for having me 10 times.
Oh, wow. I cannot wait to have you 10 times more as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, VC. Keep saying yes to coming on.
Oh, I will always say yes. I love coming on here.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for listening to Schlock and Awe. Yeah, thank you again. And we will be back with another Michael Myers double. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.